We've already done a prayer. Somebody did a prayer. We'll call this meeting to order of the IDA on this lovely day in Central Florida. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate you being here and your interest and concern for the well-being of Hardee County. We have called the meeting to order. We will dispense with a prayer. We've had one already, and we'll let that one carry through. Okay, we're all right. We will go to the approval of minutes. I'm sorry, the agenda. The agenda. That's not on here yet. Has everybody had a chance to see the agenda?
I have no additions or deletions.
Okay. No additions or deletions to the agenda. It's a pleasure of the board.
Move we approve.
Second.
Motion's made and approved. Made and seconded, to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we'll go to the approval of minutes. Again, these were emailed to everybody, and you should have had a chance to look at them. Anybody see any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and seconded to approve the minutes of the agenda. All in favor say aye. Sorry.
I seen, unless there's something happened, but the one I seen on the email left out that complete speech that you made when you took over in the minutes. I think it should be in there.
It's a pleasure of the board.
Motion stands.
Motion stands and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Moving to the capitalization policy. Turn it over to Bill.
Again, as a formality, we are adopting a capitalization policy. It is basically the exact same capitalization policy as the Board of County Commissioners, and I'm going to let Sarah address any specifics related to that policy. It too has come out as a recommendation from this financial auditor or auditor general? I can't
No,
remember.
this is the regular audit. This is the regular audit from Larson Allen. They've recommended this. And we are going to be adopting the county's policy. So you have that in your packet. And it's a couple pages. Pretty much, I apologize, Bill just kind of sprung me on this from me about 2 seconds ago. He's
good at that.
I know. Basically, the threshold for the county is $1,000. So that's probably the most important thing in the document. And we took this straight from the Office of Budget and Management. So if you want to take a few minutes to look over it and have any questions, I will do my best to answer them.
These do comply with the new GASB rules.
They do, yes.
This is titled Hardee County Board of County Board of County Commissioners.
Correct, yes.
So we're just suggesting that we'll change the heading and put...
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. If you approve this, then we will take it and modify it to say Hardee County Industrial Development Authority where needed, and probably bring it back to you in a final form just for your reference.
It has been recommended to us that the easiest way to accomplish this policy adoption was to simply adopt the BOCC's capitalization policy. And then we'll make it our own once it happens.
And on our audits, if you were to go in and look at the previous ones we've had done last year, the Larson Allen had already made reference in those audits in the financials that the BOCC capitalization policy was the one that the IDA is following. So it's already in our audits that we turned in to the state last year.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to adopt
Second.
with the changes.
Adopt the changes.
Several changes. Wherever mentions Board of County Commissioners.
Yeah. Wherever mentions Board of County Commissioners will be changed to Hardy County Industrial Development Authority. Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Okay, the related party transaction policy is the same related party transaction policy that was discussed in the EDC meeting. Again, it needs to be accomplished for the IDA.
So we're basically overlaying what we just did in EDC.
Two different boards.
Yeah.
One's a
But-
501c3, the other is a dependent special district, and they both need their own adoption of policies.
I move to adopt related party transaction policy.
Do I hear a second? Second. Motion's made and seconded to adopt the related party transaction policies. Any other comments, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, USF Tourism Study.
Casey Dixon's going to give you a report on
Morning. As you know, we completed the tourism analysis that we partnered with the University of South Florida Institute of Government in early September. A presentation was made in a joint meeting to the IDA, EDC, and Chamber boards on October 5th, which was a summary of the full report. Each of you should have been emailed the full report in its entire context in order for you to make any changes or comments that you thought needed to be added or taken away to the full report. Likewise, that's been done to the Chamber board as well. What we need now is, in order to use this document to further our goals and objectives within the confines of that agreement, we need a formal approval of the document in its entirety. We need one from the IDA as well as the Chamber board so that the public can be allowed to view it, as well as for us to use it as a working document within our office for future projects. So I'm asking today for a formal motion of adoption of the full report of the USF Tourism Analysis Study.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion for that.
Second.
And seconded to formally adopt the report from USF Tourism Studies so that they could be utilized here in this county for future reference. Any questions?
Would it be, the language, would it be adopt or accept?
Accept.
Accept would probably be the best word, really. So is that okay with your motion to accept it? Second. Is that okay with a second? All right. Any other further questions, discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion
I just
carries.
did want to make one final point. Just keep in mind that this was phase one of a project in its entirety. At some point in the future, we will need to take up the discussion again if we want to pursue into other phases as far as the development and implementation of ideas that they might find in further studies. So just keep that in mind as we move forward.
Thank you. All right, we ready with our transmission from England?
We are.
All right, we're now going to see a presentation from England through Skype. Good morning.
We're so advanced.
Hey, how are you doing?
Great. You're looking mighty spiffy.
Can you hear us?
What I'm going to do is call in on a phone line so that we have better bandwidth for the video, okay?
All right. Whatever that means.
I don't think that's cameras for you. Yeah, it is working.
Yeah.
We're showing area. We're showing area.
You're going to go to the speakerphone so you can shut off the microphone too.
I will. I was waiting for you to call in. You have them on the speakerphone?
Are we gonna turn off down the lights?
Okay.
Yeah, we
I don't think so.
You think?
It's all right.
Those are good.
Everybody can see okay?
Muting the mic now.
They've got these,
Yeah.
they've got the monitors through the whole room though. They're gonna put me to sleep this morning.
Drink coffee. Yeah.
No, I'm like number 4.
Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Great, this is Bill.
Can you hear the back?
Hey, Bill.
Okay, you're live, you have the floor. Maybe a bit awkward at times, but we'll make it work.
Okay, Eric, I can't see the screen at all. It's whited out for me. So, the first, you should be on slide 2. Okay.
We're on slide 2. Coming now.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hosting us. I'm in England. We're developing our product. We're planning on moving to the U.S. for manufacturing. This can power your house. This is what we'll be manufacturing there, as compared to a refrigerator-sized piece of equipment. The other engine that I have to show you is this one. This is a 15 horsepower engine, which gives you perspective and size. So we were looking for a manufacturing home. We got lucky enough to be able to meet Bill and look at Wauchula. Bill can give you some background on that. Next slide, Eric.
This is the Orton chart.
Our goal is to be able to manufacture and deliver goods to the world from Wauchula, literally. Our business is an export model as well as manufacturing. Next slide, Eric. Our management team is quite experienced, a lot of gray hairs here, and we did a lot of homework and a lot of research on deciding as to where we wanted to go. Next slide, Eric. The benefits that we found for us, for Wauchula, was its location. Obviously, it's what gives Wauchula a capability of growing its manufacturing sector, and from our perspective, there was a very strong supply chain in Florida. We have 5 transportation ports, 5 hours, 5 airports, 5 seaports, and 5 major cities. Very unique. And when you take a look at the total population basis, there's roughly 100 million people a year in a 12-month period that's going there. And with the associated trade zones and other pieces that are there, it was definitely advantageous. Next slide, Eric. Orbital Technologies is a company that we own in parallel with TF Man. And Orbital Technologies is our holding company for our technology and our development, for our generator, for our engine, for our sales and exports, which is primarily there. It also will provide our global licensing, private placement, and it is potentially to be a public float. That's the direction we're going. Next slide, Eric. So what's coming to Wauchula? Well, we're planning on bringing in robotic manufacturing, our research and development, 3D parametric modeling, and various other types of analyses. Next slide, Eric. These drawings are some of the drawings of our engine that we are developing. Next slide, Eric. And the pictures that you're looking at, this picture is the robotic arms that we're actually planning on putting in this facility. Next slide, Eric. The blue and white machine you see is one of 18 machines that will be going into this facility over the next 3 years. machine is 14 feet wide, 21 feet in length, and 47,500 pounds. That's why we needed the floors enforced. Next slide. You're looking at robotic arms that will go over our CNC machines. Those two arms feed those machines. Now, our equipment is sitting in Chicago right now waiting for homes. Thus, our timelines became very tight and difficult, and Bill was very aggressive to work with us to try and be able to come to Wauchula. Next slide, Eric. What you're looking at are some pictures of the parts that we make and manufacture. The elegance of our engine is that it's very few parts, but very highly machined. So the machinery was very, very important to what we had. Next slide, Eric. Basically, the second point is the key. Our core technology underpins the advantage. We're looking for a small power density. So in today's world, to be very efficient with fuel, to be smaller, to be lighter, to be more powerful and more continuous power gives you a significant market advantage. Our view is to make Central Florida, if you will, the echo center for the new revolution of power and power generation. Next slide, Eric. Orbital and PSMan are planning on bringing our research and development, our testing, the manufacturing of the parts that you just saw, plus our sales and distribution to the area. So we expect that we'll employ a fair number of people on a highly skilled level. We need engineers, we need technical machinists to operate, and then our sales will originate here. So the containers that come in with goods will be going out with goods from the state of Florida. Next slide. We decided to also give you kind of a quick overview of where we were on our technology chart. We have a 10-year technology path, and that is from here going forward. Up to making the decision to going to manufacturing, we have a series of milestones, and these are the different service hours and levels of engine performances that we're at. We're currently somewhere between milestones 5 and 6, which makes our engines more efficient than most everything that's on the market, and we can burn most liquid fuels available. Diesel is still a problem, but that is just a few months off in our development. Next slide, Eric. Our orbital genset has already been prototyped. That's completed. We currently have secured purchase orders from people such as Rolls-Royce, DHL, On Time, Speedy Hire, and other companies similar to this. We are currently recruiting staff, but we've been waiting for a home as to where to put that staff. The management team is pretty much in place. We have some engineers that are from Florida that we have here in England for the time being, but we will be looking to hire at least another half a dozen engineers, and we have not hired any of the machinists that we're looking for locally. To our surprise, Wauchula was well positioned with that because of all the mines that are in the area. We'll be able to recruit from that, and it was one of the major questions that we had. We are establishing our supply chain as we speak, and we do have world-class suppliers. So we will have some of the finest equipment in the world sitting right here that leads technology. And as I mentioned, we do have a reasonably good supply sales chain at this point. Next slide, Eric. Here's our product development plan. It's been a lot of years in the work, basically 3 years towards where we are for production, which is ready now. We have our 10 kVA generator, our genset. That's this. This is what powers your house. This entire piece, generator and all, as it sits in my hands, weighs about 30 pounds. The finished product will weigh 120 pounds versus 1,100 pounds by our competitors. From there, we'll have ongoing testing, and we have significant interest from the military in a 1 kVA generator, which is a very tiny, very small generator. And then we'll go to a 19 kVA, which will take the same form factor. So the money that's being spent now for our equipment, we'll be able to manufacture what we have, and we have planned expansion so that we're capable of doing up to 500,000 units a year. Next slide, Eric. This is a very brief overview of our finances. We are halfway through the first year. Our first year burn is expensive. However, we have quite a bit of investment that's coming from private equity. With the sales that we already have in the pipe, we are pretty much booked for our first and second year of development. We are actually going to start working on third year of sales once we have our plant up and running, which we're hoping to start that process in the May-June timeframe when the plant is handed over to us. And then it'll be 12 months from that period of time based on our numbers. Last slide, Eric. Basically, we're looking to grow with the community and continue to grow with the community. Our basis had started out in Sebring, and Sebring, for its own internal reasons, didn't work quite as we had expected. But Mike Willingham was gracious enough to put us in the direction of Wauchula. And after looking under the hood, I'm sorry that we hadn't found you guys a lot sooner. Bill's been excellent to work with, and we really appreciate the opportunity to work into the community. So that's basically what I have for you. Eric is there in my steed, in that I'm working on our projects to continue to get our engines into development and get our sales going. Are there any questions that I might be able to answer for you? I know Eric's got some videos of our running engines, which he could show you on his laptop that was unable to integrate it into the system you have.
Any questions here? Preliminarily? It's kind of overwhelming, to be honest with you.
I didn't hear what he said.
He said it was overwhelming, Sean.
Oh.
Please express our...
Oh, I hope you liked our products. We worked hard.
Thank you so much.
Please stay.
Yeah, Sean, if you'd like to stay on the line for any further questions.
Yes, I'm happy to.
And please express our interest in continuing getting you guys here.
Absolutely.
I heard that.
Okay.
Let me turn the lights on.
Yeah. Have you got some other stuff for us? No? No. You were good. You've already shown us the 2 videos you were going to show us.
I can fire up some video of the engines running in a dyno.
Yeah, that'd be good to see.
While you're doing that, I will go through my thoughts on this. I want to make it clear that in many respects, this company is a startup company. We have a good idea. They have a great entrepreneurial spirit. I really haven't found anything about what they intend to do that I have felt like involved a significant level of skepticism. But I remind you that they are a brand new company with a great idea. And they have a significant amount of startup capital. And what I have tried to do is look at this project from the assessment of risk related to the Industrial Development Authority. And it's really kind of simple from my perspective. We are well down the path of initiating construction of a spec building in the Commerce Park for Lightning Bay. When this project came about, it became evident to me that we would have to alter the plans for that building in the following manner in order to accomplish them taking residency there. There are some differences in the slab construction because this equipment is so precision, it can't have any vibration. And we certainly, it just has to be constructed differently, which drives up the costs. Additionally, because the equipment is very technical in nature, it runs in its own air-conditioned environment, but the environment for the entire building has to be air-conditioned. We believe that this building can be brought in with some modifications around $1.6 million. Maybe 1.650 is kind of where I'm targeting it right now. I had anticipated this building for Lightning Bay to cost between $1.2 and $1.3 million. So we are in essence putting an additional $300,000 to $400,000 into a spec building that will have different amenities. It will have a different floor, and it will have air conditioning. If for some reason this project falls apart before they take occupancy, we will attempt to terminate the installation of the air conditioning to mitigate that risk. I really don't think that will be the case. I think if we decide today that we're going to amend the anticipated cost of this building, I think that this company will begin to formalize plans to make sure that that equipment gets shipped here by the end of March in 2013. So, I'm only looking at it from the standpoint of increased risk related to the increased cost of the building, but the upside is tremendous for us. So that's kind of...
The equipment is already in the States? Is that what he said?
It's in Chicago, I believe.
Yes,
Yes.
some of the equipment is in Chicago.
And it's German equipment?
Yes, it came from Germany. Yes. We're ready to show just a couple of engines operating on the dyno. Yeah, have a speaker if you've got a jack. Yeah, go back. It'll just be a fair amount of noise. One second.
So if it's like the old Mazda rotary engine, it's just going to hum.
Right, that's it.
Okay.
That's exactly it. Let's try that. Yes, definitely re-engineered. That's a 5 horsepower engine. That's the engine right there. This is the load. And this is the 15 horsepower engine. This is our dyno facility in Birmingham, United Kingdom.
If you didn't hear that, he said it was their dyno facility in Birmingham, United Kingdom.
And we'll be duplicating those facilities here.
And the dyno facility will be duplicated here.
And that says 15 horse on the dyno.
Eric, dynos are basically equipment that measures torque on various machinery.
Torque, horsepower,
And horsepower.
RPM.
Eric, I'd like to add one point, if I may.
Yes.
Bill is correct in that the company that PF Man is a new company. However, one thing that should be mentioned is that it's a company that has been spun up to take a mature company to the U.S. market. There is a fair bit of money that's been placed into this, a lot of money that's been spent on the purchase of equipment. The investment and management team all are personally vested into this. And we have a Chinese partner and customer that has put significant funds into it. So although from the basis of time and actual paperwork on PF Manufacturing, everything that's associated with the sales that are associated has been several years in development with a fair bit of money to it. We're quite committed both in personnel, equipment, and finance to make the venture work solidly. So we appreciate Bill's strength and support, but don't think for a second that there isn't a lot of money as well as blood, sweat, and tears that have gone into the development of this. This is a relatively developed business project.
I do understand that, Dr. Oakham. I just am erring on the side of safety here, but your point is well taken.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No other questions? Well, I'm sorry.
What happened in Sebring? Why aren't they in Sebring?
Dr. Oakham, do you want to address that, or would you, I mean, I'll be a bit secondary as far as what actually happened in Sebring, and you don't have to go into specifics, whatever you're comfortable with.
As far as my understanding is concerned, and I don't know all the politics, and I am speaking at a school, but my understanding was that there were some issues within the city itself that they had financing in place, and they lost several very large customers in the location we were at, which put them under severe financial stress. We were originally to be placed at the Sebring Airport, where we do manufacture aircraft. There are 5 major tenants there, 3 left in 1 month. And so I think it gave the airport some pause. And I'm not positive, and I don't know this for a fact.
We lost you.
I think he was just.
Or did you complete your statement?
He's searching. It's like he's lost audio.
Testing. Can you hear us?
No.
Sorry about that.
It might, you know.
Okay. So we're not positive 100% what happened with them financially, but we went from having a commitment to, we know these guys in Wauchula, you should talk to them. Bill can probably address that as well, but that's our understanding what occurred.
That is essentially what has occurred. How long have you been at the Sebring Airport?
We've been there since 2000.
And you manufacture a type of experimental aircraft that is marketed?
We actually manufacture light sport airplanes. We've taken several airplanes to certification. We have roughly 700 airplanes in the world, and we were one of the largest tenants at the Sebring Airport.
Wauchula has an airport.
What did you say?
I said Wauchula has an airport.
That's right, and that's something we've actually discussed about moving that operation to you. Which we actually, in our view, we've been in Sebring a long time, and although I am originally from the Clearwater area, I have a real fondness for the central part of the state, and I think there is tremendous asset and benefit both from employees and infrastructure that has been greatly overlooked. The central part of the state, Wauchula included, has been good to my company and to my business, and I really want to give back to the community and to the area. We have had some very interesting offers throughout the state, and Bill's even heard part of it. But we really are motivated to stay locally because we believe that we really expand both from a business standpoint as well as a community standpoint in a significant way. And Wauchula is much more poised for that growth than I expected. In fact, one of the interesting points was when we first started talking, they were amazed that we would leave Sebring to come to Wauchula. But I have to say, regardless of what you decide with us, what we've seen, that what Bill's put together in that industrial park and everybody else that's associated is frankly quite amazing for the area. There's a real desire to grow, and there's a real desire for expansion and not remain just rural, but to integrate rural with manufacturing and business. You know, business is good for families. It's not a sin to be a capitalist. And there's no reason the two can't be mixed together. And I think you guys have done a great job. So we're very honored to have the opportunity.
Everyone repeat, it's not a sin to be a capitalist. Okay. Are there other questions from board members related to the nuances of what I believe we need to do at this point? Or how do you want to take up debate on this issue internally?
Well, you've laid out the game plan. I think we just start from there. you had said what needs to be done to move forward. So let's take it from there and just make a decision.
Well, I had laid out for you action items on Friday, I guess, and I need to make sure they are still. Greg, Witt,
Yes,
I need you to elaborate for the board on the costs that you have associated with modifications of this building and maybe the various nuances of modification that would be forthcoming. And please come up to the mic. I want to say that there are some problems related. They're not problems; they're just hurdles to overcome. But we have a SWIFMUD permit that is issued with a building that is 20,000 square feet with 24-foot eave heights and approximately 2,000 square foot office footprint in front of the 20,000 square foot building. We have an option to build this building and put the office into the 20,000 square feet, which can save us some costs, but I'm not sure how that's going to affect the SWIFMUD permit. I believe we can accomplish that by moving ahead with construction and changing the as-bills. I need to have a little additional conversation with the engineer, but I don't think that at the end of the day is going to be a very big problem. The floor costs, the HVAC costs, and the 3 megawatt power costs are probably the largest significant increases in construction above what would have happened from the conventional construction of the Lightning Bay building. Is that correct, Greg?
You guys are correct. I mean, we constructed Project K at about $75 a square foot cost. That project did not have the 3 megawatt power, did not have the conditioned space in the warehouse. It's the same exact size. It was planned with a structural steel mezzanine, which this project will not have at this point. So how those costs are going to adjust, we could potentially be right in the same ballpark as that project. So that's what we're looking at and we're shooting for. We should have, after today's meeting at your office and also through the next couple of weeks when we get a set of plans, we'll be able to start putting some budgets in this thing to see where we're at.
Relative to the payment of the building, I have laid out a set of circumstances. One is that we simply amend our budget to accommodate a minimum of $650,000 above the EDA grant of $1 million that's been allocated to the project. I've also, I'm seeking authorization for us to go back and amend the EDA application at their next meeting to query on whether or not that grant can be increased. I've not talked with Ken Evers about it. I did copy the EDA members on this document so that they would have some type of ability to forethink what may occur or may not occur here. Whether that happens or not is not necessarily going to impact the IDA's ability to finance the construction of the building. I also believe that we can retard the construction of the second building into the 2013 year significantly enough that we receive another Mosaic disbursement, or I don't think we can go long enough to have another EDA grant cycle, but I do think we can receive another Mosaic agreement disbursement. I would be apprehensive about that if we were earlier in the year, but they have mined now for 11 and a half months without interruption from the time they was it 11 and a half this year? Did they mine the whole year or did they start this year? I can't remember. In any event, they will make their disbursement, and the EDA monies will be certainly greater than they were last year. So these action items that I have put in your packet, I think if you take those up and agree to do those, they will at least give us an ability to formalize whatever contracts are necessary with PFM and have the authorization to approach the EDA if that is an option. and to amend the budget so that we have adequate monies to commit for increased costs relative to the project.
In your opinion, if we try to hold back on parts of this application of the HVAC in this building, I know some of that has to be done during the initial startup, but I would suspect the biggest part are the actual units. A big part of that expense would be that we could stave off until the end, till we see how this thing materializes.
Yes, sir.
Would, in your estimation, what would that percentage of the HVAC cost be? Half, 60%? Well, I mean, what could we hold back until we know further if this is going to happen or not?
To condition this facility, we're looking at about $200,000.
That's everything.
Yes, sir.
Units.
Units, ductwork, everything.
Okay. What significant cost would the units be in reference to that $200,000?
Probably half. Yes, sir.
Your point being that the infrastructure cost in constructing the building is a definite $100,000 increase. There may be mitigatable risk on the purchase of the units of $100,000.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
on the air conditioning.
Just the air
Not on the
conditioning.
flooring.
Yeah, not on the flooring. The flooring's got to be what it is.
Right, yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board concerning this? What would be our next step, Bill, on this?
Well, I would like to. I can't move forward until I'm certain that the board is willing to provide adequate funding to get the project to a point that we can be certain that they have a home in a timely manner. I cannot do anything about the timing of this issue. It's just, I will tell you this too, that and this is not a threat, but there are other urban homes that they can light in. I mean, that is a real possibility. And if you feel that this is too precarious, you're acting too fast, the marriage is too quick, then we blink and they go by.
What are they asking for?
They basically would like for us to provide them a home of this building, and they would like rent abatement for the first 30 months. That's basically going to be 2 years on our part. And then we would include with them a performance-based note that gives them an option to purchase the building relative to the quantity and pay scale of the jobs that they create over time. So that as they begin to pay rent, the payments don't all go back to the IDA. They do in fact reduce the purchase price of the building as an incentive for them to create jobs in Hardy County, which is our objective.
If we did choose to do this, would it put any of our other projects in jeopardy as far as being able to fund other projects that we already have in the works? And depending on how you answer, you take it into consideration that we already have a commitment to Lightning Bay that we'd have to pick back up potentially next year?
The only commitment that could be slightly imperiled would be the timing of Lightning Bay, and I'm satisfied that they're fine to be end of third or fourth quarter of next year, and I don't see this as impacting them whatsoever.
That was their plan anyway, wasn't it?
They really had not expected to be in the building until September, October, and this delay is probably healthy for them.
Any other comments from the board?
Let me clarify so I understand. What is the dollar amount, Bill, that we need to approve that's above and beyond what we already have approved for the Lightning Bay building? Is that the 200?
We have been planning internally for a supplementary amount above the grant of about $300,000. You have not, I mean, I have made provision for that, but we've never addressed it because I don't have all the cost estimates in on the building. Similarly, well, actually, the spec building that was built for Keyplex was a larger grant award. And I believe we will have to supplement this building somewhere to the tune of $600,000 or $700,000 above the EDA grant. I do not think it will impact any projects negatively that we have ongoing. It may have a chilling effect on anything else we do for the next 3 or 4 months, but frankly, suits me. My plate's full. There's plenty to do.
So then do we need a motion to reallocate the spec building with the additional funding, or do you just need a motion to go back before the EDA to seek additional funding? How would you like to
Well, what I have put in the packet is this action item: acknowledge and approve PFM to take tenancy of the spec building planned on Lot 14 in the Commerce Park, formerly Lightning Bay, subject to certain budget limitations, not to exceed $1,650,000, inclusive of a $1 million EDA grant and any other increases provided by the EDA. I believe that motion will accomplish everything we need to accomplish at this point and allow us to go to contract with PFM.
I'll make the motion as presented.
I'll second. All right, we have a motion made and seconded. Everybody understand what that's about? Any questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, the
What
next.
about the other action items?
Yeah, I'm going to go through them. The next recommendation that I had proffered was to approve a formal request to the Hardy County Economic Development Authority to acknowledge assignment of the change in tenancy from Lightning Bay to PFM, or to allow Lightning Bay to proceed in the event PFM does not materialize. I'm trying to keep us flexible here. The EDA does not meet on a regular basis, and the sole objective is, normally it would be a spec building and the tenancy would not be an issue for the EDA to take up. But when this project came about, or when we made the request for a spec building, Lightning Bay came to the EDA and made a presentation. Because they were there at the presentation, I feel it is the appropriate and honorable thing to do to go back to the EDA and say, we have a change in tenancy. We would like you to acknowledge and approve or acquiesce or take up debate or otherwise let us proceed with the swapping of Lightning Bay and PFM. And I don't expect any problems with that, but I think it's the right way to do this. It's never happened before. I'm just trying to do it right.
Does that also include the second item on the next page, or that?
That would be a separate, I'd like to do that separately, because this one basically, we will ask them for whatever their protocols are to acknowledge that the EDA criteria basically has language that talks about criteria related to the site. If the EDA grant was predicated on the fact that Lightning Bay was going to be an anticipated tenant in the building, I would like their minutes to read that the original reason for the grant, which was the anticipated occupancy of Lightning Bay, is being acknowledged to be replaced by PFM. It's strictly a formality. It's an auditing issue. I'm trying to err on the side of safety to protect us.
Because the spec building grant was awarded to the IDA.
Yes.
But at the time, it may have been specific to...
It wasn't awarded to Lightning Bay, but I brought them to the EDA to make a presentation for the purpose of obtaining the grant, and for that reason, when they convene next week, I want to ask them to acknowledge that we're swapping tenants. I think it's the right thing to do.
But for clarification, the funding was given to the IDA for
Yes.
the purpose of a spec building.
Yes.
So we're just asking them to acknowledge the
Yes.
tenant change, correct?
Yes.
Except on the next page, you're asking for.
And for some more money.
Well, that's a whole other
Yes,
motion.
right.
So anyway, that's the second.
So moved.
Second, thank you.
And that motion is to approve it, is approve formal request to the Hardy County Economic Development Authority to acknowledge assignment of the change in tenancy from Lightning Bay to PFM or to allow Lightning Bay to proceed in the event PFM does not materialize. Motion second.
Motion made and seconded. I can't talk that fast. Any other questions, comments? Everybody understand what we're doing here? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And then the next item is to approve formal request to the Hardy County Economic Development Authority to increase grant award from $1 million to $1.3 million to defer part of the increased construction costs related to PFM. I don't know if that can happen. I believe it can. Ken Evers will have to advise the EDA on that issue, but if you authorize me to go and make that request, I will
So
go do
moved.
so.
Second.
All right, motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? Everybody understand what's happening here? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay. Dr. Oakham, are you still there?
I am.
Okay, we, I believe, have completed our task to move forward. Are you going to be on a plane coming back from England tonight so we can formalize all the arrangements? And also have the City of Wauchula manager here who is anxious to talk to you about the airport.
Okay, that sounds good. I'd like to add one point, if I may. First off, I appreciate all the councils and people involved for allowing us to go forward. One thing I'd like to say is you've got a very good synergy moving forward. With our business coming in, we're not relying just on the employment that we're bringing in. We're actually expecting many of our vendors to follow us. So we're hoping that the cluster development that we will have will be well worth the time and the investment that you're making into us. We're not going to be an IBM. We're not going to employ thousands, but we will employ good quality people, and we will educate people locally so that they will have jobs and vocational skills to move forward with. But we are looking to bring in other companies with us, and in fact, we are talking to 3 very large companies right now. One is a generator company that will be making portions of our system, and another is a battery company that we're discussing as well to make lithium-ion batteries for the area. So I appreciate your support, and I hope that we will be able to make you proud of us as a good citizen to the community, but also for the additional jobs and businesses that we will bring to the community. And your generosity and your openness for conversation makes me want to sing the praise of the county to the people I'm working with. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to another item, and we'll be back in touch. Eric, I believe, is going to be here meeting with the architects, engineer folks today, and we'll be back in touch with you later. So thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you all very
Thank
much.
you.
Have a great day.
Goodbye.
All right, next on the agenda is bionitrogen. Or you got something before that? Yeah, why don't we take just a 5-minute break? We'll be back. It's about almost 5 after. At 10 after, we'll start again. 10 after 11. Thank you.
We had to have more rest.
Go until 11.
Do you want me to go ahead and do
It's overtime.
so that they kind of have an idea,
That's the road down
you know
there.
what I mean? Before they go into trying to fund something? I have a budget laid out for the mosaic and amendments that show everything.
When we do bionitrogen, then you can come up and do that, President.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just thought it might be better to do it
Just remind me.
then.
After bionitrogen.
Okay. I mean, it's on, during that, it's right here, so just, I'll go right. That's what this is.
Ken's a lawyer. Wait a minute, Royce. gonna be on the EDC. Why? I know there was a reason. Still have to make things here. American. I call American the way It's like the first printer we bought. Now they're giving the printers Did you know Oh yeah. Sounds like
So yeah, our building's supposed to be, we're supposed to come in like mid-December to early
What does one of those old 20 cubic inch whole home generators affect the retail?
It's an ankle road. These guys, what does happen.
I told you to later to enter the video. I want one. No, I do want to have a video from the gas station machine. I want to try to get there and run and see. Because frankly, I don't know take anything. Like gas station.
Once you vent them retroactively, but it's obviously like that.
What?
Yeah.
Oh. The chamber thing for continuum, do we need to do anything as far as like
How's Vanessa?
We just
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Well enough.
Hanging in there?
Hanging in there.
It's been
I'm just worried about the
crazy.
relationship, you know,
Have
the
you
issue
figured out
we
how to
can
clone
come with the
yourself
past
yet
about
so you could get more work
us
done?
performing services for the IDA.
No,
Capacity.
I don't think I would do that. So I wouldn't make another one of me, right? I wouldn't put that, whoever that was that got cloned into me through that,
Do that so that
through the divorce process.
we're thinking, I got
It's
that's fine.
cruel and unusual
Okay, I
punishment.
just want to make sure that we're not.
You always have to recognize we're paid on certain.
All right, we ready to start?
Is that what you want?
I'll do it however.
No, I mean, I don't know.
Let's everybody find a seat, please. It's 10 after. We'll get cranked back up.
We're not designated authority.
Good break. Last time you didn't have a break.
I know.
Okay.
This time I swore.
My bladder.
Through, we trudged through.
Me too. Permanent damage.
Where's my designee?
Go.
Mr. Chairman, at this time I'd like to introduce Brian Cornegie from BioNitrogen. Brian, you may want to make a few introductory comments. If you're not, we can begin debate. And how would you prefer to do this at this point?
It's up to you. I'm just going to run through a quick presentation.
That's great.
If there's any questions, you guys can. Or not, you know. I'll just.
Pull the mic up. There you go.
So my name is Brian Cornegie. I'm the CFO and Director of BioNitrogen, which most of you around here are relatively familiar with the company. What we do is take technology that's proven. The youngest technology we have is 28 years old. We take wood chips, sugarcane bagasse, corn stover, tree trimmings, orange trees that are anything that you consider to be dead or waste that is not going to produce in the field. We will take that, we will shred it up into small particles so that it burns evenly, and the gas from that process goes into ammonia plant, which then goes into urea plant to produce 46% nitrogen urea. Most of the farmers around here do not use that because it's too potent. They typically dilute it with water. So you get a 23% nitrogen, which is basically half water and half our product. And you can mix it at different levels, but the key is making it locally. You're not having to pay for transport. You don't have to move the urea from Russia or China here and then pay for somebody to transport water with the urea to the field. And there are a lot of technologies that have been approached by us that take our product as a raw material and coat it or modify it specific to the farmer. So an orange farmer needs a certain type of fertilizer, a corn farmer needs a certain type of fertilizer. Our product is one of those raw materials. And we've been approached by several people who want to put plants on the back of our plant. The key to our plant is the biomass. We want to build a plant where the biomass is readily available and where there's a market for urea. Those two areas in the U.S. are primarily Louisiana and Florida. And I liken this because I spoke to a couple people about this. If you ever played with your car growing up and you had a catalytic converter, you understand the concept of carbon dioxide versus carbon monoxide. You need oxygen to burn something. If you adjust the catalytic converter and there's too much oxygen going through, the car doesn't run. If you turn it back, there's not enough oxygen, the car doesn't run. So there's an optimal level in a catalytic converter that you need to burn that gasoline efficiently in the car. That's exactly what this plant does. There is a big furnace, it's enclosed, and it is a controlled burn so that they get the right mixture of carbon and oxygen, which is carbon monoxide, not dioxide, to put into our plant. So it's the way that I view it is, instead of burning orange trees or burning trees that are pushed up, you can put them in our gasifier and produce urea. It's better for the environment, and it's proven technology. We have looked at several different sites. We were approached by Hardy County, or people within the constituency, to look at building a plant here. The plants are about $150 million. We have a $150 million bond offering. And one of the concepts that had been presented to us as an attraction to the county is funds available through the development authorities to help build the plant. And that's been on a reimbursement basis. We're not of the mindset that people have to give us a bunch of money without any strings attached. There's a $150 million bond offering that has strings attached. They have their own process, their own feasibility study that they're going through. So this is vetted by several different levels. And what we are planning to do, we've already gone through the process, I guess, for the last 3 or 4 months. The bond offering is on the governor's desk. Once that is authorized and approved, we will then move toward BB&T issuing the bonds. They will be issued to institutions, probably out of New York and Chicago, so this is not individuals that will be holding the paper or the risk on this. Each plant will produce 50 full-time jobs, $48,000 in income, salary on average, and we're expecting to add additional plants on the back end. One of the reasons we chose the land that we did was because it's large enough to expand, and it can build a rail spur. I can tell you additional information if you want, but part of the process with BB&T as the underwriter is a condition precedent to closing the bond and funding, which will be funded. 150 goes into an escrow with the trustee in order to build the plant. And once that's done, there is no stopping building the plant. The plant will be built. So as part of that process, we're looking for the $2 million to be allocated on a reimbursement basis to go alongside the $150 million bond offering. And we're expecting the plant to be producing urea in the first quarter of 2014. It's already all been sold to United Suppliers out of Ames, Iowa. And they are working with the local fertilizer companies and the independent fertilizer cooperatives to sell the product locally. Question?
I concur with your report.
What are the plants that you say will come on the backside? What are there additional, larger, more of your plants, or is it somebody else?
They're not our plants. They're somebody else. Then fertilizer, you have NPK, nitrogen, phosphate, and potassium. There's plenty of phosphate around here for everybody, and the farmers want a mixture of that. So one of the companies that we're talking to actually puts polymer coating around the urea, and that polymer, during the day it expands and releases the fertilizer. At night it seals back up. And this process is proven. Then it is used by U.S. Sugar, used by large companies around here, and they will modify it depending upon the type of product they're applying it to. So orange trees have a different urea, granular coated urea or polymer coated urea than sugar cane. They have been requested. They've requested from us our raw materials so that they can coat it and sell it in the local market. That's just one example.
Is that a little bit of an added feature? Because I think when we talked, or maybe a couple months ago, a month ago, or maybe it's a discussion I had with Bill, the urea wasn't very well suited for Florida. It was more for the Midwest type products. But it sounds like that is something new that you have been working on. Is that correct?
It is. You go back to, if you build it, they will come. I mean, there are a lot of people that have started approaching us because granular urea is not what the farmer puts on. The farmer puts on another product. Granular is not widely used on orange groves. They use UAN, which is a liquid version. So you can use our product if you water it down for the orange groves. United Suppliers, this is a new market to them, so they are actively looking at local end users in this market. The one company that I just mentioned to you, they're looking at 25,000 tons of our 125,000 tons. So in that short period of time since we last met, we already know that there's 25,000 tons that will be consumed in the local market. And to give you one little further point, one of their customers said, if you can bring the price of the product you give us down by X, we will double or triple the amount we buy from you. And with our plant being here and cutting down on the logistics cost, they can do that.
One point of note, the company he's referring to has a process of coating urea so that it time releases in a very efficient manner. And they recently, did they obtain a patent or they sold?
They sold the licensing rights
Sold the
to the
license.
patent to 16 of the 48 states.
And they are very significantly funded at this point, and they really would like to come here adjacent to this plant. And the reason is the coating of urea makes it more applicable from the standpoint of use in the Florida market. Typically, urea is not considered a type of nitrogen that is utilized, especially for citrus, because it volatilizes too soon. They have some processes that affect the way it's manufactured that slow down the volatilization of it, but as a general rule, what is not coated is probably going to end up in corn unless sugar and some of the other people continue to adapt methodologies of using it.
One more thing just to clarify, because I've seen and heard some various statements about the feedstock. You don't plan to bring in paper or garbage. This is feedstock. You do mean wood products, correct?
Yes. A couple things that when you talk about municipal waste, you have to separate tree trimmings and mulch. That sometimes is not attractive to us because it will have nails. If you drop a pile of tree trimmings on the side of the street for the municipality to pick up, there will be other things in it. There will be Coke cans, there will be bottles, things that we cannot use in our process. So that is not even if it's readily available, it's not an attractive alternative for our plant. What is attractive for us is going to commercial sites such as orange groves that have to uproot 7–10% of the groves a year, or Mosaic, who has a program to basically pile up and burn very large trees. That is what we look at. The IRS deems it as solid waste. We don't deem it as trash. I want a tree, I don't want somebody's yard clippings, because it doesn't optimize our burn. So we're not looking at moving what you would consider to be trash from other counties up here.
Thank you very much. I just wanted that to be clarified.
Any other questions? Now the clippings you talk about, and let's just say hypothetically, you take an oak tree that's 4 feet around, and you chip it, pulverize it, you compact it. Do you pelletize it? What do you do? Do you transport it in bulk like that, or how does that work?
You can. Obviously, if we're going to take an orange tree from a grove, we would rather chip it at the grove and move it in a truck, because the logistics will just kill you. And it's the same way with moving tree trimmings. If we get tree trimmings from a place that's too far away, we will want to dry it, because half of that is moisture. So we don't want to transport water. We would dry it, we would chip it or mulch it, and we would put it in the form of a pellet. So if we were to use tree trimmings, mulch from various counties, mainly the ones along the coastal areas, we would dry that and put it in a pellet form so that it keeps the moisture content low, because we don't want to pay to move water. So it doesn't make sense economically for us to move tree trimmings from Miami just because. Locally, we would not pelletize orange tree chips, because the cost of doing that is not economical. The orange tree is a very good biomass to burn. It has a lot of BTUs. And typically the ones the farmers pull up are dead or dying, so they're not that green. Based upon that, they're dry enough for us to just chip it and put it in. So the economics dictate what we do with the feedstock before we put it in. But we are not going to be piling up whatever we put in the gasifier, whether it's orange tree chips or huge 4-foot oaks, because it doesn't make any sense. It's a waste of effort, and it can get wet. And if it's wet, then we have to spend a lot of money drying it.
So the pelletized products come from where?
The pelletized products would come from Miami up to Naples and up to Palm Beach. And those, the reason we would consider doing those as an alternative is because there's not enough orange trees, there's not enough trees from the mosaic, the phosphate companies pushing up, or the economics are good. And for the economics to work, we have to dry it and pelletize it locally before it's brought up to us. So the economics dictate that we are not going to be bringing tree trimmings from Miami just because. Now, we would look into doing that locally if there's sufficient quantity. And a lot of the municipalities, I think, once you move forward, they'll get the concept that you got to do something with it. The state mandates you cannot put it in a trash dump. So if you cut tree trimmings, you can't put it in a trash dump. And at some point, you know, either you're going to pay $40, $45 or more per ton, and the municipality has to go buy more land to go put the mulch on, or you come up with a more efficient process. And I know Palm Beach County is spending tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars trying to solve the problem of that mulch piling up. So if there's a way for us to help the municipalities without putting the burden on us, we would look at it. But for this plant, we're not making the assumption that we're going to go after the municipality.
So that the pellets will be transported by rail?
Rail or truck. Rail is a funny business. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. And the distance may be too short to justify doing it by rail. But if to the extent it makes sense, we would do it by rail from the south.
Got full operation, assuming truck transportation and the equivalent amount of BTUs you can get out of transporting 40,000 pounds or 45,000. I don't know how you determine that. I know there's a weight limit. How many trucks a day at full operation would you anticipate?
Worst case, we would be bringing one, if we do it just by trucks with no rail, it would be one truck in every 30 minutes and one truck out every 30 minutes. So you'd be looking at
24/7 or just?
Yeah, but we'd probably do it during the daylight hours. But if you do the math, you're talking about somewhere around 50 trucks a day. We could do it by truck. The infrastructure exists to do it by truck. The county road supports it by truck. But the economics will be better by rail. And that's why we've moved forward with proceeding with the rail. At a minimum, the finished goods, the urea, will come out by rail car.
Yeah. Any other questions? So what are we seeking here?
Brian, I need you to go back and clarify your statement related to the funding as it ties into the bond issue. I didn't get clarity on that statement.
Sure. So BB&T, the underwriter, as a condition in the term sheet, as a condition precedent to funding, they need to ensure that the grant is available and accessible for reimbursement of expenses. So the trustee, which is Wells Fargo, will be receiving $150 million with specific instructions as far as how those funds will be dispersed to KBR to build the plant. And they're requesting and requiring as part of that process that the $2 million be allocated. Allocated can be available for reimbursement of expenses directly to the company or within the trustee.
I understood that the $2 million was going to be reimbursed for the real spur, but you're talking about now, it may be for expenses, attorney's fees, or whatever it might be.
Well, no, we're paying for the attorney's fees, and they're I hope they're not $2 million, but they may be. But what we're doing, the way that we approach this, to take a step back, the way that we approached this was to try and simplify everybody's lives. So we selected the land. We moved forward with paying for the engineers to make sure that that parcel of land within the 600 acres was the piece that we wanted, making sure it worked with the zoning laws, and making sure that that would suffice for the rail spur. And as part of this process, the idea all along had been for reimbursement. And as we moved forward, we felt that reimbursement, I guess there were different ideas thrown around of, if the plant isn't built, does the county really want to own a rail spur to a piece of property? My guess is yes, because there's value there, but it just brings up a whole nother litany of issues. So the concept moved forward to, we're going to build the plant. So the reimbursement, if it wants to be just for the rail spur, it can, but the rail spur, $1 or $2 million, is going to be in the plant cost of $150.
So the $2 million would be given to you after everything's built? Or what, you know?
No, it's going to be allocated to us and available to us for reimbursements alongside the $150 million for BB&T. BB&T won't move forward with the funding of the bond unless they know that the $2 million is there, but they're also not going to move forward with the funding of the bond if they do not know with 100% certainty the plant will be built and will produce 360 tons of urea a day. Did that answer your question, or?
Yes.
I had proffered that the money would be on a reimbursement basis for infrastructure, and I used a generic application. We could change it to site infrastructure, which, I mean, we pretty well know that the rail spur is going to run somewhere between $1 and $1.8 million, ballparking, would you guess? And I would anticipate there being some ingress, egress issues relative to the road infrastructure going into the plant. I'm a bit apprehensive about how the EDA would word its language. You got any suggestions on that? Could you see that as a problem?
Well, the EDA would word it something?
Yeah.
EDA money?
Site infrastructure, I mean, what kind of benchmark attainments would bionitrogen have to produce in order to trigger reimbursement?
I think the board has the option to tie it to whatever you want. I mean, you could, I haven't been party to the discussion, so, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong with what I say, but you know, I'm assuming that if it's reimbursement, it can occur at any point in time during the process. So you could tie it to phases of construction, you could tie it to substantial completion, you know, whatever comfort level this board reaches with tying it to certain phases.
Could we accomplish
that's your call.
Could we accomplish it with an escrow agreement with a neutral party or with BB&T that says, look, here's our money. We're going to make it available to you from these two different pools, subject to benchmark performance by the company, or, I mean,
that was what I was trying to lead to. If you don't specifically say that something has to be done, there's upfront cost involved in issuing the bonds. And if we don't put it to site improvement, then they could ask for reimbursement just for the cost, sorry, Ken, of attorney's fees.
No, I don't
or
think
any other expenses that might be involved before they even turn a shovel
you're,
full of dirt.
You're right. But I think and I'm not, from what I heard out of his mouth, I don't think I heard him say that it has to be for those sorts of expenses. We just have to, they have to have some sort of indication, proof, evidence that this board has allocated and made available the funding they're looking for. What you use as triggers for reimbursement, I think, is up to you. I haven't been privy to any of the conversations with the bond guys, but it would seem to me that if you're looking for a warm and fuzzy feeling and you're wanting to tie release of the funds to certain construction milestones, so to speak, that you would have that prerogative.
Is that going to be an issue?
No, I don't believe so. Tying it to certain specific benchmarks, I think is we're completely comfortable with, and it goes along the concept of what we discussed initially, whether that is the triggering is purchasing the land, the triggering is signing a contract to have an engineer build the rail spur, or a construction company build the rail spur, the closing of the bond offering. You can tie it to certain aspects, but from our perspective, it needs to be available so that we can go and pay for those hard costs. We're not looking to be reimbursed for soft costs. The hard costs, I'm talking about engineering, construction, that's that material aspect.
What could you or the Davises proffer back to the IDA in the event that the rail spur, would the rail spur be built first or last of a project?
Neither. It will take 12 months to build the plant. The rail spur takes a period of time to get approval from CSX, which is anywhere from 30 days to 4 months. But the building of it doesn't take that long. Now, having said that, we will start, once we start moving dirt, they will be building out the infrastructure not only for the slab pours, but for the railroad as well. I'm trying to think openly about things you can tie it to. I guess part of that process, is the FDOT. I mean, if you want to tie it specifically to the rail spur to make sure it's built, is that your thought? Or?
Well, I'm still apprehensive. I don't want to end up with a rail spur to a vacant piece of property and no plant. I mean, if that is where we're, if that was the intent of the debate, it'd be fine. But I don't think that's been the intent of the debate. So
no, it's not. It's not our intent either. So once the bond is approved and it's funded, the trustee will ensure that the plant is built. So even if bionitrogen goes away, that plant will be built.
The BB&T language, do we have access to that language that specifies the piggyback of the $2 million? I'm unclear.
I think you have. If not, I can provide you a copy of the term sheet.
Bill, I was just going to say, when we originally considered this, I was under the understanding that it would be used for, of course, the hard costs, rail spur, infrastructure, what have you. And I think that's the most important, to me, the most important part is that, number one, prior to any of our funding, we know that the BB&T or the bond issue is completed and signed off and sold and everything's in place. The money's with the trustee. And actual work has started on the plant or at least the property and preparing for it. So I'm not sure how we word it, but I think those are some of the considerations that we should make certain of.
I concur. I'm just trying to find the perch.
I don't know that the fact that if you put a rail spur there and nothing else happens, that it would be as bad as you make it out that you said it might be, because it'd be a good marketing tool for future companies. We've got a rail spur ready.
But I think at that point we open up a whole different set of negotiations. If we end up building a rail spur to a private sector piece of property, then we need a reservation of rights and some control over how the rail spur is going to be developed, etc.
If this is a reimbursable grant and they're not putting any stipulations as to when they need to make the withdrawal, the draw against the grant, then couldn't we just say that the draw would be upon completion of the project? I mean, if they're going to be able to use the $150 million first and put our $2 million last, why wouldn't we just specify that it would be at the end, and then we don't, who cares about a rail spur? And I mean, we're getting what we're getting and it's done.
I don't think that'll work.
Well, that's problematic from the aspect of the budgeting, the budget that is a part of the bond issuance. Is the funds have to be available for use. It has to be from a source that is available, and that's been the issue on the timing. Is that as part of the bond issuance process, that when the bonds are funded, the trustee has to know that the money to complete the project is all available, and coming up with a way to provide an adequate certainty that the funds are available as part of the budgeted project has been difficult, and that's why I say that they'll be available for disbursement upon completion is not. It isn't. I guess they don't. The bond guys don't like that. So the language that we have been discussing is that if the trustee certifies that the funds are under his control and sufficient to complete the project, that would that. I mean, our position is that is a very safe condition for authorization for availability of the funds from the IDA, where they can be requested for withdrawal. And the other issue, and that we've been working on language, is what is qualified expenditure and what expenditures are qualified for reimbursement. And we've got a definition of that includes essentially hard costs that and I've got copies of some of the language if y'all don't have it or don't want to look at it right now. I brought extra copies, but those issues are not difficult to create language for, at least in my opinion, as long as we're in agreement on what we're trying to say. I don't think it's going to be difficult the difficulty isn't a language difficulty on the timing of the disbursement, the timing condition for the availability to request the reimbursement. That issue was being more controlled by the underwriter on the bonds, is saying, I'll just be honest, saying we just need to know that money's there, and saying that it'll be there in a year. We're not crazy about that.
So if we put the $2 million in escrow,
that would be
funds available, and if you can't complete a $150 million project, if you're $2 million short, you cut it way close.
You can't escrow the EDA money. It's technically escrowed. You can allocate it.
And that was the other issue, is escrowing it is another, that's just a messier issue too, because it sounds easy and conceptually it's not difficult. We all know what it is, but in the context of this, it's not a problem. I don't think it's a problem for us to do it. I think it would be more of a difficult issue for the boards to be able to escrow that money. I don't know.
So I still don't understand why they wouldn't allow us to prick our finger and sign it in blood that we've got the money here, and show the money's here, and when all said and done at the end of the tunnel, it's not a freight train coming at us, that we can say, okay, now you've completed your project, now you request our $2 million. Well, I don't get why that will work.
Well, I guess it's more the issue.
Because what I see coming is they're going to do some hard cost, and as soon as they do $2.2 million of hard cost, they're going to say, give them the money. I'd rather play it at the end.
Soft cost.
They told me flat out that won't work. If you want to put 149,
Why?
Because, well, they don't believe me. They don't believe anybody else. They want to know that the trustee, Wells Fargo, has all the funds that they need to.
Or we can give him the funds and say you can't disperse it till the end.
I can run it by them, but what I've discussed with them previously was that that doesn't work for them. I can go back to them and ask them to change the term sheet.
As a large national bank, should have some scruples related to the providing of monies like this.
They do. We get back to soft cost. How much is it going to cost us to set up this whole thing as far as legal fees go to get this to be number? You guys are the last $2 million. The concept that we laid out with BB&T, and we're working with them to do bond offerings here and in Louisiana. We have selected sites in Louisiana that don't have development funds but have ports that are existing. That's a $5-10 million investment, and BB&T is under the same terms. It's that we need to have all the money into an account that we control, that our trustee controls, in order for us to make sure that this isn't problematic. Those are the rules that they provide.
So if we built the rail spur and the road infrastructure to the property with some reservation of rights from the owner of the property, and you reduce the cost of the project, would that be an acceptable alternative?
Yeah, they can change the term sheet to say that the rail spur will be built over here, and they don't have to allocate it in their funds.
Mr. Davis, you want to give us a $2 million mortgage on your property?
I was thinking about being the escrow agent.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, I'm having a little bit of trouble following if it's not a problem to tie the disbursement of the IDA funds to certain construction milestones, isn't that just a different way of saying use your money first in terms of, I mean, if you said at 50% completion or something like that, isn't that in a de facto way of making Wells Fargo spend the bond money first? I mean, I'm seeing it as two different ways of saying the same thing. I mean, if you expressly state spend your 148 first before you spend our 2, that's one way of getting there, but isn't another way of getting there saying you have to be 50 or 60 or 70% complete or something like that? I'm not following that, but maybe if we saw the term sheet, it would clear that up. It seems to me that that is the issue. What is the definition of available? If it's actually them sitting on the money in their account, that's one thing, but feel like they're not going to release their 148 until somebody goes on site and sees that certain milestones have been met, their inspections, and then they're going to pay the contractor more money, and that's going to be going on an ongoing basis.
Ken, I think what we're concerned about is $2 million worth of soft costs. We get called and spent, and then we have nothing out there.
Right.
There is nothing out there at all.
That's where my comment comes in about tying it to certain phases of construction, because by that point in time, most of those soft costs, like you said, have been up front. You know, the first money out is the first money that usually gets tied up into those soft costs.
Yeah, I think I just speak to I guess the concern, unless I'm missing it. You guys don't want, the authority does not want to have $2 million go to reimburse soft costs for our project or our company, and then concerns that the plant's not going to be built. I mean, we can tie this specifically to the engineers and the construction companies that are building the rail spur. I mean, we can go down a very specific list. This is not 20 people. This is Kimley Horn and Associates. It is KBR Grainhern, and I believe it is the CJ Bridges. And that's it. We're not asking for 25 different invoices that are soft costs. These are hard costs that are going to go in the ground for improvements.
I don't think it's the hard cost versus soft cost. I think it's the occurrence of the money being spent on soft costs prior to any bricks and mortar appearing on the site.
Okay.
Am I right?
Yes, that's my concern.
What? I think the other issue that I'm not sure how we're going to deal with is you're saying that they need to control the money, and we've been talking about a reimbursable grant. So that may not work for what you need, because you need the money to be dispersed or funded to them so that they can hold it and control it.
Yes, that's the message that's been communicated to us from BB&T is they need to know that those funds are there and that they can control it.
So then is that an issue with how the grant has been awarded initially?
Well, it originally was a reimbursable grant. Originally, that's how we.
That's the way it's.
So now it's evolved into not that.
Right. I mean, originally it was, correct, but originally my understanding was it was a reimbursable grant that was focused on the land and the rail spur, so that there was something tangible that the development authority or the county had if something went wrong and there wasn't a plant and there weren't jobs created.
I may be wrong, but that's why I want to tie it to a rail spur. $2 million won't even dig the footers for this construction. It's a small amount of money. I don't want to have something out there with just footers poured, and I'm just using a simplistic idea, and nothing else done, but our $2 million is gone, then the construction stops. And it doesn't do us any good. We have something that is of no use to Hardy County or to the landowners or anybody else if we don't have specific. It has to be the
awesome. Well, there's, having the $150 million bond offering completed can be a milestone, and if that is the milestone, that ensures you that the trustee is going to build the plant for $150 million, and they're going to have a contract that ensures the plant will cost less than $150 million. And as a part of the funding, I guess you can tie it to specific hard costs related to the infrastructure such as rail, so that you feel that that's separate in some way. I'm thinking out loud as far as ideas.
What about holding in advance until that happens?
Holding it in advance until
Yeah, advance.
Advance.
We hold it. You give us the guarantees from BB&T, and when that happens, we can allocate it if we want to do it toward rail spur or purchase land. And you know, there's got to come a point when someone's got to trust someone. Sure. And now that we don't trust you, I don't know BB&T. I don't know Wells Fargo, except as a realtor, the experiences are not very good. So, am I going to trust them, or are they going to trust us? We have control of X amount of dollars. And if we have some guarantees that they're going to perform, whatever this gray cloud mass is, then we can have this money available if that's the consensus of this board. I mean, we gotta deal with the local constituents, and we've got to make sure that what we're doing, to the best of our ability, is the least risky as we can make it. Understanding that all this kind of stuff we do has risk. We understand that. So I'd rather them trust us than us trust them.
They're the 800-pound gorilla. They know it.
Well, sure. I mean, and there's got to be some way we can make this work. I mean, there's got to be some way that if we proceed with this, we can specify that it goes to whatever these hard costs are, whether they be the rail spur or whether they be tied in with the land acquisition / rail spur. We just can't give them the money and say, use it as best you see. That just doesn't work.
No, I understand. And I think one of the concepts of tying it to the rail spur and the land was that was a small enough piece of hard assets where people could get comfortable with. If it was $2 million, there's more than $2 million of assets there. And the plant is the 135 to 150, so that you're de-risking the $2 million that comes in because you have a specific and hard asset around that. I think that was the initial thought.
What if we were able to tie our funding to the purchase of the land, where we could have a lien against the property, have a performance-based note that by the time it is complete would be forgiven? Would that satisfy their need for control?
I think it would. I mean, we can go. I believe that it would. The initial concept that we had presented prior as part of this whole package to BB&T was that the land and the rail spur would be done initially in separate, and that would be funded and controlled by the development authority's funds. And then, as we move forward, it would basically be, I don't know, once everything's completed, there's your rights are gone to the collateral because the plant's built. I think that was an initial step that we had discussed. So I do think that is a legitimate possibility. You're talking about having specific collateral to the land and to the rail spur, which are hard assets. And once all of the rights, or once all the duties are done under the bond offering, then we release our rights to a reverter clause
to the property.
Yeah. I mean, that was the initial concept.
That works, Stephen?
I think it would work. Yeah. I think it would, for basically reimbursable expenses for the land and the rail spur, and there would be a reverter clause that you have those assets until some specific performance occurs.
What happens if another company at some point in the future wants to build a building north of this building or your construction, and they want a rail spur? the company that owns the rails, if we don't retain ownership of the rail spur somehow, they could stop that.
Or rights to it.
Or yeah, have some rights so they can extend the rail spur further up in the property for future development. How do we get past the point where somebody can say, no, we don't want anybody else here. We're not going to let you use the rail spur.
We discussed building the rail spur the entire length. Part of that issue is that there's some wetlands that need to be remediated, and that's just a whole nother set of obstacles. So what I can tell you is that the intent is to complete that. I guess you wanted to completely de-risk it, you could buy the other parcel of land from Larry Davis and then you own it all, but I'm not sure. As I would say, we bifurcated this into two pieces. And the first piece is the first parcel of land that we're buying for 40 acres with a rail spur that's sufficient to cover our property.
I understand that.
And
My concern is future expansion or extension of the rail spur. If your company owns the existing rail spur, then they could hold hostage anybody else that wanted to develop further down the road, down the rail spur.
Perpetual non-exclusive ingress and egress over the rail spur.
It would not be in our best interest to tie it up. We're speaking with other people to relocate their facilities to other parcels of this land that will want that. So I don't, where we're going is in
Is there a way to get, the attorney's going to answer, is there a way to get around that?
I don't know. I have no idea what CSX requires for a rail spur. I'm assuming that there's some sort of an agreement with CSX that might even address that. I have no idea. I've never dealt with that before.
Would not the perpetual non-exclusive easement over and across that to mitigate if it doesn't, isn't that not addressed in the CSX agreement?
You know, if there was some sort of reservation of rights, either in the form of an easement in favor of the IDA, if that's a concern, that might work. I just am completely ignorant about what CSX does or doesn't do in their agreements as far as what it might address, whether there are limitations on the amount of traffic that it can generate, and you know, there may be a ton of issues that none of us are aware of or thinking of as we stand here. But
I just wanted to prohibit any future growth north of where this plant's going to sit for the rail spur.
Right, I understand the issue. One comment on the other idea, Vanessa's comment about the lien position. I'm assuming, Brian, I mean, I don't know how the bond, if the trustee is putting out that kind of money for land acquisition, do they not take a first lien? Are we talking about having to have them subordinate, or are we talking about, what is the trustee's position on the lien? Do they, if they're providing funding for the acquisition of the land, do they not expect a first?
Under a tax-free bond, the project is specific to what they're doing. So if they're not funding the rail spur, they're funding the plant next to the rail spur, they'll be looking at a first lien on all of that property.
So really you would be looking at, I'm saying to the IDA, a second lien, really.
Well, it depends. No, I think you could, if you wanted to bifurcate this between the piece of land where the rail spur is going to exist, okay. If that is not specific to the tax-free bond financing, then they don't have a first claim on that. They have a first priority claim on all of the building and infrastructure within the project that they fund.
Okay. So, I understand.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just say on the issues have changed somewhat from what we had originally voted on, being the reimbursable, and of course I was considering that we were somewhere towards the end, and there'd be a building in place, and there was very little risk to the IDA to invest the money because the building was there. No offense, Brian, but I think the parameters have changed based upon negotiating with BB&T. And I think really for us, we need to know, perhaps Bill and Brian and attorneys and everyone else, to present us with how it can work, rather than us saying this is our parameters, because we can say a lot of things, and until we see what BB&T is agreeable to, I don't think the actions that we take really are meaningful. I think we need to hold this off until there are some discussions and some negotiations as to when our money would go into the project, and have clarity as a board to be able to vote on that.
Does this approval impact the proceeding of the sale of the bonds?
Yes. The two routes that had been discussed and approved with BB&T was one, the grant being allocated for the construction of a rail spur into the property. The other one was the $2 million would be a grant into the company, and the funds would be set aside with the trustee. Those were the two options that they had agreed to. The option of being the last $2 million and being held within the EDA until the plant is complete, they're not comfortable with. They said that is for them is a no. And I understand there's some gray of the trusting mechanism here. If the first two work, or one of the first two work, then we can go down that path. And the first one of the concept of the funds going to hard costs for the land and for the construction of the rail spur, and having an attachment to that until the bond offering is complete and until they come in and basically provide whatever specific performance is required, that's something that my conversations all along with BB&T has been acceptable. And it's something that's been acceptable to the company. With regards to expanding it into the other parcel of land, that's Mr. Davis owns that land, so we'd have to talk to him about it. But as far as, ingress and egress, I don't think the company would have no reason to withhold that. We would have to talk to CSX about it, because you're bringing rail cars in and off of their rail line, and they have a litany of questions about who the customer is, what rail cars, etc. But I don't see any reason why the company would prohibit that easement.
Mr. Attorney, what if, I feel like that in many respects what the IDA does is going to be controlled by the statutory requirements related to the EDA relative to the disbursement of money on a reimbursement basis. I think that criteria may be less flexible than the IDA's. Because of that, if the IDA agreed to transfer money to the EDA and let them settle this issue on how they wanted to fund it, is that a more efficient way to do this?
Not from a time perspective.
But we have to, we can't.
This is going to have to go back.
It's got to go before the EDA anyway.
Regardless.
It's on their agenda for next week, but it has to go back before then.
Refresh my recollection. How much did the EDA fund?
The EDA has $1 million, and the IDA would have $1 million. And I don't see how we can change the rules related to the EDA to meet the criteria that BB&T is requesting. At least maybe.
The EDA grant award agreement ties the $1 million directly to the spur. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, we're asking for permission to change it from spec building to site infrastructure.
Oh, okay.
Well, it says it was for transportation infrastructure.
Well, it
says for rail and other transportation.
If it's awarded to the IDA, it's an IDA is the grantee under the grant award agreement. I believe you could reimburse on
soft costs.
No, but you can reimburse on terms different than what's in the local bill for the EDA. I mean, when the grant award agreement is there, the EDA has awarded the money to the IDA. So here's your $1 million for your stated purpose. The IDA's rules on how it disperses and reimburses are different.
Well, but what he's saying is the EDA's rules are more stringent than ours. So it's a reimbursable grant, so we would have to meet certain criteria to get the grant. So we can't differentiate from what they granted the money for. So what he's saying is-
I understand what you're saying. You're saying IDA is going to get its $1 million on a reimbursement basis only. So you have to carry the rules through to your, we'll have to work through that. I mean, I don't know. These are questions on the fly and they're difficult to answer because they're, without having had the benefit of all the conversations, what BB&T or that these guys will accept is probably driving the day.
But what he's saying is, could we return this $1 million to the IDA for them to disperse more directly, and in addition to that, give them $1 million of our funding to include with that? So that, in essence, they would be awarding the $2 million.
I don't like the idea. I mean, you're basically saying return the money and then there are provisions in the local bill, Vanessa, about the consideration of all the applications being relative to one another, and they have specific grant cycles. And it's one thing to do something like a Lightning Bay and substituting just who the tenant is. I think it's a different thing to change who the grant award recipient is. I think there's a lot of questions raised. I know that it doesn't sound that complex, but it is. Right now you have the grant award, and I believe the IDA has the flexibility. You got it. It's a cash flow issue, really. I mean, Bill's got a reimbursement basis that he gets it from the EDA. EDA doesn't give you $1 million up front. You have to get it on a reimbursement basis, and Bill has to be able, IDA has to be able to cash flow the project. I understand your issue, Factor. I think that you have a certain set of guidelines by which you get your money from the EDA, and you know, I do believe you have the authority to differ from those guidelines as the IDA. You're not stuck with the EDA's reimbursement policy on distribution of your funds once you get them, but you're going to be getting them on a reimbursement basis.
Can I ask Brian something? Brian, what type of draw schedules does your project have from BB&T?
The draw schedules is going to be dictated from KBR Grainhern on the disbursements that they need to fund the plant. So,
Well, I mean, is it like when they pour the footer, you get a percentage, and then like building a
correct. It's a typical. It's an EPC contract, engineering, procurement, and construction, and KBR will state in their disbursement schedule, and it'll be over a 12-month period, and it'll be specific to milestones that they have as far as completing all the construction.
So maybe 5, maybe 6, whatever.
Yeah, it's probably months, maybe 6 in a 12-month period.
Thank you, Bill. Could this board be comfortable in allocating percentages according to those draws, and then having maybe the final draw, the big one, say it'd be $1 million, and then before that be the million, the first $1 million be spent according.
I think this board would be. I don't think Mr. Cornicky is allowing that to be an option. Or BB&T.
Yeah, we're going to do.
Why wouldn't that be if they're doing the same thing? Why couldn't we work on with?
Good question. You need to ask them that. They're going to say, I want all the money up front, I suspect. And we want to do this project, but we got to figure out how to do it. So we're comfortable with not just giving away $2 million and having nothing left to show for it. So BB&T is going to, they may or may not, but BB&T is going to control what they approve as far as our $2 million.
Right. BB&T will agree to the contract that we enter into with KBR, which will have a specific disbursement schedule over the construction period. And what I'm happy to do, if you all would like, is that I can go back to BB&T and say that, from what I hear, you want the $2 million dispersed under those same terms.
Or a pro rata share?
Or a pro rata share.
If they'll accept it.
Yeah.
They
What,
already.
what do you think, board?
I think that's.
I mean, if it's good for them, why, we should all play by the same rules.
So it's the you guys would be pro rata on the disbursement schedule agreed to by KBR Green.
Well, that's what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
from
But
the-
I think we
Basically
need,
the
we
trustee.
need to be able to see it. But
Agreed.
Yeah.
in principle, yes.
So the conditions would be completing the bond offering, signing the KBR agreement, and agreeing to the same terms that BB&T and the trustee agreed to as far as the pro rata disbursement of those funds.
Works for me, but if BB&T refuses to accept that, then what do we do? Come back to this board?
I think, yes, but I think from what I understand in your process, once those funds are allocated or awarded, they're legally set aside or reserved on your books. So the risk that those would not be available when the disbursement requests come in is non-existent.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that.
We understand. We
You
understand
understand
that
their
from the
concern.
IDA's perspective. We don't understand that from the EDA's perspective. That's a different issue.
But I think the first step is to get back to them and say, will this BB&T this work for you? The way we would like to possibly do it. Is that the consensus here?
Yes.
So the award would be allocated, set aside, and the funds would be dispersed on a pro rata basis in accordance with the EPC contract that's entered into with KBR.
Yeah.
Is that what y'all, that work for y'all?
Or any other reasonable options that may come forth.
That's approved. And the reasonable offers that come before us, that's approved.
Okay.
I mean, again, we're not trying to be adversarial.
No,
we just got to try to get it as right as we can.
Do you just want to authorize Bill to
So
negotiate
how long will
with
it
the
take you to get to
engineers?
BB&T and get back? What's the timing of resolving this issue?
Today.
Well, let's adjourn to 4 o'clock
Is this something that we can authorize Bill to negotiate on behalf of the, now that he has an understanding, or?
No.
No, I think we need to meet on that. We may have to.
We might have a special meeting. Then we get under the rules of 2-week notice and all that stuff too, which is we got to do those types of things. But I think that's. And we've talked about a lot of things. I don't know if there's any other alternative to do this the right way. Is to do it. See what they say, and we'll as quickly as we can move forward. Once we determine their answer, we'll do what we've got to do it in a timely manner by law to move forward.
Okay. Would it be correct for me to go back to them to say, if you're in agreement with this process, the development authority is this works for them, make sure it works for you?
Subject to EDA approval.
Well, the EDA's got to approve it, yeah, like Bill says.
That's
I mean,
next week.
Wednesday.
yeah, they meet Wednesday. It's a two-part harmony here on our side. Your side, like I say, they're the 800-pound gorilla, but we got to all dance together. So
Correct. You ever dance with that?
once hurt me. Do we need a motion for this? Probably so. Woo.
Well, because there's an additional about $1 million
Take a lunch break
here
and
we're talking
find out
about.
something.
My problem. I got to be gone at 2 o'clock. I got to be out of town, so I think we got to persevere here. Lunch sounds good, but we can.
Do you want to move forward and I can come back
That would
and
be a
give
good
you
idea.
an answer?
Why don't we do that? Is that okay with y'all? Yeah. Okay. Let's do that.
Okay.
Let's do that. We'll put you on hold and move on. We're going to go into a budget. Where did Mary go? No? Oh, there you are. Yes, she wanted to move that up.
About spec building one?
I'm gonna do my budget first.
She wants to do the budget, so we know how much money we got.
Do not move on to continuum so that they can do that.
Or do you want us to move on to continuum right here? Yeah, let's do that. Come back in, Travis, I'm sorry. You just thought you had to go to the bathroom. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we got a bunch of them tied up here, so. Get prepared.
So are we at KC with continuum then?
What?
KC.
Yes.
Dixon.
It's not really me. It's kind of, I'm piggyback to Bill. Bill has to start those discussions.
Did he step out?
I mean, I can go.
Let's
Talk
go.
about my project. Okay.
Can you let him know we moved on to continuum? We're good.
Okay.
Go.
My part of the discussion is Bill and I have been talking over the last couple of weeks in regards to project management of the Continuum Labs Tech River project. Specifically, in the contract and the section 8.0 obligations of the IDA, he is asking the chamber to take over those responsibilities and sort of a separation of duties within our office. So he's looking to the chamber as far as the management of the project, and in that section, which is on page 5 of the original contract, it lists out specific bullet points as what he is asking the chamber to work through with Continuum and the development of Tech River. I will tell you that this has not gone before my board yet. I have a board meeting tomorrow. So as long as we are in agreement and that's how you guys would like to move forward with the project management, it would be subject to my board's approval, which is tomorrow morning. It's in, do you have the contract? It's in the original, it was in the original contract.
Is this the one that says assignment modification agreement?
On the front page, it says assignment and modification agreement.
And then
if you continue back past the
Way back.
it's actually listed as page 5.
Yeah, page 5, but
Yeah,
about
but it's not really
10 pages
page
in.
5.
Yeah. Ready to go another 3 hours?
It's included in the section which is the grant award agreement with LiveSync Technologies, which was the original contract with LiveSync, and they have just extended the contract for Continuum, which that's what you guys are voting on today. You can't find it?
Can somebody come point it out? I'm a little slow.
Has everybody else found it?
Yeah, I got 2 of them. Late, that's still foundation 95.1. 8.0. 8.0. You're in the wrong.
You're in the wrong document. We're in this document.
It's in the wrong package. Thank you.
that's the front page. The same.
You got it? Okay. Y'all got it? Y'all have it? I don't think you have it.
That's it. Go about 10 pages in, get to page 5.
I don't have 10 pages.
No, it's not good. It's not good.
Well, might be in.
Wait. Yes, she does.
Yep.
Okay, I think we're kind of all here.
You're all there?
Sort of.
I don't know what specifically Bill wants to add, but that's my piece.
I don't know specifically what you said, so
I just told
have nothing to add.
I just told them about our conversations and you asking us to take over, you asking the chamber to be involved with the project management of the Tech River Project Continuum Labs, which is...
I will tell you, I did speak with Stephen, and I'm not sure whether we will formally involve the chamber or whether we will involve you on a contracted basis
Right.
to help us administer this part of this project.
Right.
But Stephen and I have another conversation related to that, and we'll work that out.
The chamber or her as an individual?
Her as an individual. I mean, basically, we just have to have some help here in case he does this periodically for us. We're not sure whether it becomes more complex with the chamber. I'm also trying to make sure that the chamber itself is not getting too much funding from us, because it could change their status, and by using Casey as a contract employee, it changes that.
So that would be my suggestion, is that if you agree that you want us to kind of negotiate that based on my board's approval tomorrow, that we can come back to you guys with a formal contractual agreement, either between myself and the board or the chamber and the board, as to how to proceed.
Do everybody understand what she's talking about?
No.
Casey will be the project manager for Continuum. She will assimilate all of the data, all of the reports. She will be in charge of coordinating the agenda items related to their monthly reports, and to peruse the financial request and report to me directly. And then we will agenda it. You will have their presentation and their debate and approval of their funding. Is that okay?
Okay.
Didn't mean to be so harsh.
Is that required?
Yeah, do
No.
we have to do anything with that, or can we just move on with this? I'll do it.
Again, my recommendation is you need to discuss and debate the contract, set the funding amount for the next 11 months, which I presume at this point to be $3 million less the October disbursement. The funding procedures utilized for LifeSync are proposed to be modified in that, rather than a draw schedule approved in advance, as we did last year, there will be monthly draw requests that will be submitted to the IDA for disbursement, subject to monthly progress reports. We're providing a little additional layers of due diligence. I would like for you to allocate a set amount of money for budgeting purposes to the project, so that it's earmarked and set aside, and then they will come and make their monthly draw request based on activity that occurred for that particular month. It may or may not be level and consistent with what was presented. There's been some scheduling changes that Mr. Bond will have to address, but I do feel like at the end of the day, this procedure provides for more accountability and transparency.
Did you get that?
So really, the first order of business is to approve or reject or alter or go to lunch related to the contract.
Should we allow Mr. Bond to give us some words of wisdom? Is that a deer in the headlight look?
It is.
Okay. Is there something other than we know already that we should know before proceeding?
No. Unless you have specific questions for me.
Are you comfortable with all parts of the contract, or have you had the opportunity to evaluate everything presented?
No. In all fairness, there are new sections to this agreement I haven't seen in the other drafts. And so, while I do not contest them, and I want to put in place what is needed to protect the IDA, I was not aware of the Chamber's involvement beyond a vetting process.
Travis, the Chamber's involvement is simply from a project management standpoint. It has nothing to do with the Chamber per se. We're simply utilizing the services of Casey Dixon as an ancillary IDA employee to accomplish the workload. We can't do it with what we have, so that's all that is related to.
And I would subordinate to the board's wisdom as to who they would like, to do that. My other question is retain records for at least 5 years following this agreement and it being available. It has been the experience of our company that if we put it in an email, it ends up on Google. And so my question is at what part, in terms of the sanctity of our intellectual property and our spending patterns and canceled checks and so forth, are the property of the IDA? It would take a third grader to reverse engineer how we built our company in one invoice and one check at a time. So in the original agreement with LifeSync, it was the process of inspection and to be certain that it met criteria. And now it would appear that there would be an archive of every transaction that could potentially go through Continuum and or LifeDash and or Tech River for 5 years after this agreement. That is a new stipulation to me. I was not aware of that.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 5. I'm not saying I contest it, Mr. Lambert. I'm just saying I've not had a chance to process it. And so I do not know the implications that it would have on the sanctity of our corporation. I do not mind inspection, but I think that once things enter into this domain, they're no longer remotely private.
That is not my language. That is out of LifeSync.
I think that came from the original
Yeah,
LifeSync.
it is what is assumed from LifeSync. And I believe it is somewhat in accordance with Florida statute.
Well, what it actually states is for the IDA to inspect the supporting documentation, and then the next bullet talks about record retention. That does not necessarily mean that we need to retain copies of items that are inspected.
It says or deliver. Or, not that we would retain them.
Right, but as far as this is a separate item, is what I'm trying to state. Whereas the previous item under item C is where it discusses inspecting supporting documents like receipts, canceled checks, disbursements, and invoices. And I think that those hard copies are what Travis is most concerned about. I don't think that we need to retain any of those records.
Not even for IRS audit?
What would be the purpose?
If the IRS comes in audit books, we can see the documentation. They can check anything.
I also believe that the intellectual property is protected.
Anything that would constitute intellectual property could be exempt. But that paragraph was in the original LifeSync agreement.
Then I may have misread it and thinking that that was part of a new agreement. I was thrown off from what is some of the new language versus the old. So so to answer the question, I guess we don't mind who administers it, providing, it's at the pleasure of the wisdom of the board to be certain that their money is spent correctly and that we can defend that. I have no problem with that. I think I misread then the other thing to say that an inspection and a retention for 5 years, providing that the retention component doesn't mean that it puts it in the public domain, or if that was an existing requirement, then certainly we've already contractually obligated ourselves to assume it. But I would just ask that the wisdom of the board recognize the fact that a software company is only as valuable as its secrets. Somebody can hit copy paste.
There are provisions in the statute, though, that specifically protect software companies, especially relative to their intellectual rights. And I can also tell you that Florida legislature is struggling with where to draw the line between the corporation's right to privacy in these instances and the public's right to know. And it's a big issue all over the state. But it continues to remain ill or undefined.
Then it would be my hope that the person that you would put in charge to inspect this would certainly inspect it to the point that they need to mentally retain whatever they need to and then give a supplemental report provided that it just doesn't use a lot of the stuff that we gave that person, and they just copy paste it and put it out, you know, in packets that hit the desk here. That's my only concern. If it's required, then it is required. Just remember that what we're trying to hold sacred is our ability to competitively compete on a global scale for the software and services that we provide. The more that other people can readily copy those, then more likely are to leapfrog without the investment of getting there like we did. If I could copy the operating systems of Windows, I can assure you I could start a computer company a lot less than what Bill Gates had to do. So it's very similar. And then that would be my only concern. So provided that the administration component doesn't become more onerous in revealing our intellectual property, then we're completely fine.
This function will be simply to collate information provided and assimilate for presentation to this board on a monthly basis. And we can certainly share those, we will share those presentations. And if there are instances of proprietary information being provided, we certainly will have to seek legal counsel, but we have no intention of doing that in this instance. So.
Travis, I'll point out under that same agreement under paragraph 8, E1 has a provision that says the IDA or any person acting on its behalf shall retain or share intellectual proprietary information. That's built in the original agreement.
And I remember that providing, I guess that's my only concern, is that there has been question regarding the statute. I know there's been a few audits, there's been questions about, you know, several things. And so I think it's a lot more comfortable to have an inspector come in and say, yes, I've seen everything, it's explained to me, it makes sense. And then the report then says, yes, 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 versus, you know, this was everything we copied and looked at and so forth, and here's, you know, 500 pages of where and why I came up with this report, and then it revealed, you know, payrolls and insurances and development costs, ratios to designers, to developers, to QA, so forth, that somebody really could reverse engineer our company. It would at least in some way.
That's legitimate.
You know, that's all I'm saying.
I don't think we have any intention of doing that. Okay. So we can get past this nervous moment.
Hey,
What needs to be able to review Casey's report, and if there's anything in there that's proprietary, to strike it out.
And I'm okay with that. Again, and that would go to anyone on the IDA. Within your structure, I mean, if you have questions, please come and ask and get the answers. I just do not want the information that supported the conclusion you came to be in the public domain, where it doesn't have to be.
We understand.
You can give it to me. I can't do that.
And I would want to add just one other thing. I think it would be very beneficial to the members of this board if they would go to see Travis at his now present office and see what he's talking about. I know we've had a lot of stuff thrown at us about, you know, how we're doing things wrong and all those things, and some of this issue I think can be resolved in our minds, whether it's resolved in anybody else's minds or not, by seeing what is transpiring, what's going on, how they're progressing, and these types of things, and I'm sure there would be some type of letter of confidentiality or something that would need to be done for the same very purpose, but I think it would benefit every member of this board as they can to do that.
And Commissioner.
And what? Yeah, whatever he's comfortable with that. I think so. Absolutely.
I've been.
Absolutely.
Commissioner needs to go.
It's yes.
Sue, you said you've been.
Seems like it's worded any funny, that E, the one you read right under.
But it's
neither the IDA nor any person acting on its behalf shall not retain. So that means we neither shall not retain.
Too many negatives.
It's worded wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have to retain. I'm no lawyer.
The neither refer. The
You
neither.
don't want to
The neither in this
strike
instance.
not.
be? Neither is the IDA nor any
No.
person.
It doesn't,
The
acting on
intent
its behalf shall
was
not
the
retain.
not should not be there.
Strike the not. Good catch.
Intent, is that legal?
All right, what do we need to do here? Any other questions, Travis?
I don't.
I just had a couple comments. In reviewing the contract, I really think that it's very limiting to list all of these positions and salary ranges. You know, we don't have any way of knowing what type of candidates or applicants, and I think it might be restrictive for or appear as a commitment, even though I understand there is a note stating that these are not annualized full-time equivalent positions. I think that because he's going to be reporting on in his monthly reports the gross salaries, that we should strike 4.7A B, C, which lists all of the different positions and equivalent salaries. Or at least the salaries.
Wasn't that done just as a guidepost, really?
I'm so sorry.
Wasn't that done basically just as a benchmark guidepost type of thing?
It was. And
so that we could see that you're not out there hiring someone at $7 an hour or something.
I don't think it was.
The funny thing is, you probably just have to ask them since they all live here. But the where that actually came from was a report that we gave to the chamber. It was to sort of give them some insight as to the jobs that we were trying to create and sort of the pay ranges. I didn't think that it would be adopted as contractual language.
Right.
And so what was, once to answer a question, I think that in reality, all of our jobs hit a minimum that exceeds, the median income here by almost 200%. So the problem is, in all fairness, is that when you make an offer, you know that you're doing it somewhat to the position, and you're also doing it somewhat to that person. And so if we all of a sudden say that we could not pay a QA or this below that, and somehow then somebody comes here and says, I just talked to so-and-so and they made $26,000 and they should have made 32, then am I in violation of this agreement? It doesn't, when you go out and you start to spell out, continuum customer service, there is a hierarchy within customer service. And so there are apprentices, there's new people, there are seniors and directors of customer service. And so I think that in the spirit of what you're attempting to do, and that is to be certain that these monies are going for jobs that are not entry-level jobs, but are professional jobs involved in the technology sector, you can find that out in a month-to-month inspection. But if this now becomes part of the domain and part of the agreement, someone could come back, the attitude of a board or something could come back and say, if none of these positions are being paid like this, you need to now give them all pay increases so they fall within here. Then, that could be a real impact to the overall sustainability of a company based upon something like this if somebody else was to read it as a contractual obligation.
So Vanessa, is your motion to remove all of the parts of 4.7 that relate to the specificity of the jobs?
I'm more concerned about the specificity of the salaries. I don't have a problem if Travis doesn't have a problem with listing the types of positions they intend to have in each class. Class 1, class 2, and what positions they're hiring. I just don't. I know we've already deviated from that to some degree with the first class. There were more hires than initially anticipated. So, if we want to keep that information, just strike the salary.
This reflects the initial 10 positions and adjustments. This schedule does. So either delete it all, or if you're more comfortable deleting the pay range, or if the board wants to leave it all in, I don't care.
Well, I think for me, this was just the original concept of when the salaries was that we had an idea of what types of jobs were being created and what the salary ranges. I think it's for us to put in how much you pay a person is not proper, because any more so than any other private business, because individuals vary. You may have someone who's very entry level, or you may hire someone who's beyond that. So the ranges I know can vary. It's like in banking or any other business. There are exceptions to that, and I'm not sure that, I agree with Vanessa, I'm not sure that it needs to be in here and spelled out, and unless there's some statement just to say this is an approximation, and if that wording want to be added, and the company has the right to deviate as they see fit.
What'd you say?
If you want to leave the salary ranges, you could say that the salary ranges are discretionary, and it's left up to the company to deviate from that plan and how they see fit.
Does anyone feel the need to show the salaries in the agreement? No? Okay. Moving on.
So we're going to strike the
Strike.
salary levels.
Strike the salaries.
Everything else stays the same.
I'm fine with that.
Was there some idea why it was put in there? Again,
I think it was just
does it,
copied.
but is it not to pay the top guy $1 million and everybody they hire from Wauchula $10,000? Is that the?
I don't see that $1 million one in there. Sue's applying.
I mean, well, there was a reason to start out to put it in there, right?
That was a presentation to the chamber, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't think it was
It was part of the chamber's vetting report, and we included it in the contract because it appeared to provide more clarity and guidance. But I mean, we've actually modified what was in the chamber contract because he's hired differently. That's why I want you to know that there are 10 initial jobs, and the chamber contract called for 6.
It was 6, and we hired 10.
So it's no problem to just strike the salary ranges and give latitude there. He's going to be coming before you monthly. Any one of you can ask him a question relative to that on a monthly basis.
I'll get back to the point, though. I think it really doesn't matter because it says the initial job creation shall substantially be as follows. And I think the salary range is within to me, it didn't set it in stone what the salary ranges would be based upon that way that sentence read. But that's either way.
You want to make a motion?
Well, I think we probably need to make a motion regarding the entire contract.
With noted changes.
Okay.
That would be the appropriate.
Okay.
So then are we all in agreement just to strike just the salary information
On 4.7.
on 4.7?
Just make a motion. I mean, just put that in the original. Are you want to make an emotion on the whole deal?
I mean, I figured we would discuss the changes and then make a motion on the entire contract.
I'll call for any other changes.
Yeah. Is there any place else here that y'all saw anything you didn't like? Any other questions? Comments? How about a motion?
Can I make just one more point of clarification on a different point? I know we asked for monthly reports, and of course, in my mind, that doesn't mean that the funding is going to be tied to the monthly reports, but just more of an accountability measure. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as that goes, that the draw schedule would be a monthly draw schedule, and we would like, for accountability purposes, the monthly reports, but they're not necessarily tied to the draw schedule.
What was the intent of the monthly reports
Accountability.
at the end of the day? And accountability would go farther down the track to where?
But my point being, he's having to run a company based on the funding. If there's any extenuating circumstances that they can't come before the board or provide all of the necessary information that's specifically outlined here, I wouldn't want them to be held up from receiving their funding on a monthly basis.
Yeah, but that can be requested as needed if we get there. Some modification of that funding schedule. Could it not?
my thought is, and with every other project, the funding schedule is what it is. I mean, I think it's a measure of good effort for them to come monthly and give us a report on what's going on, where we're at in the project. We have never tied funding of draws in the past to a monthly performance.
What does somebody else think?
Is that what's written here? That their funding is tied to it?
It's not specific.
It doesn't say
That's
that.
what I think we need to clarify.
There's a blank spot in the contract.
It's at 4.8.
Yeah.
Well, it does say it's subject to amendment from time to time. I mean, if it's some extraordinary thing pops up, like Bill Gates has decided to come out of retirement and go to work for Continuum, and they got to pay him $47,000 a year instead of $42,000, he would have that option.
Yes, he would definitely get a pay cut. I'm probably sure we couldn't work in the same office. I heard he yells a lot. So I guess the question is pragmatically is the opposite true. If you didn't like your report, does funding cease? Is it the intention of this board to basically, on 30-day increments, continue to say that they like the project or don't like the project? And if something happens in month 8th or month 7th, or somebody got their feelings hurt or something, all of a sudden, month 8, there is no draw. And so I guess, are we really talking about a $3 million grant over a year that is subject to accountability and stewardship, or are we talking about something that, based upon our reports, there is this feeling of our organization that we're coming back and sort of, it's a yes, no, 12 times a year?
I don't think the intent of that would be that every 30 days you don't know whether you're going to be funded or not.
That's all I'm saying. I was just trying to present the other side of the argument. If the agreement is being interpreted as a stewardship and the meeting, is there going to be a vote each month that says, we're going to approve this draw request based upon this report?
I would hope that there would be, if there were issues that arose between your entity and us, that we could logically sit there and sit here and talk about it and try to resolve these issues, not hold something over your head like a 90-pound ball and chain and say, if you haven't presented X, Y, and Z, then your schedule wasn't met, contrary to whatever external forces have done that. I just didn't get that out of this personally. Any other comments or questions in this contract?
My thoughts were that the board would, somewhere in my notes, the board would approve an amount certain that would be equivalent to $3 million, inclusive of the first month's draw, to fund Continuum for a year. But those draws would be adjusted on a monthly basis relative to draw requests and reports. I mean, it's a little more intense, but I think the public is demanding a little more intensity. If you do not want to go that far, then it is your prerogative to back off of that. That is the way it's set up. You're going to approve a lump sum of money. We're going to allocate it. We're going to set it aside. They're going to come each month and they're going to say, we need $250,000 this month, or we need $180,000, or we need $425,000, and this is why. This is what we've done, and this is where we're going. I don't have a better solution.
But I would suspect any draw request that's made like that is going to have the issues involved explaining why we got there and how you got there.
I think Absolutely, but is it as an oversight to then say that we hired a blank contractor to do blah on Android and it cost $72,000, and does someone disagree on the board, and so therefore it's like me, I'm coming back before I can make a decision spending or development wise. I need the approval on a month-to-month basis on how I'm going to spend that money in the future.
I think we're getting too involved in the management of this company.
Yeah, yeah. We've got, if we approve X amount of dollars, how that's spent over the period of the year, depending on something that came up with the Droid or anything like that you don't have, that you're not using right now, that you're going toward, iPhone versus Droid, then you know that we can't. I'm like Lori. We can't tell you how we can be involved to the point of understanding what you're doing. But if there's a logical reason for progressing in this manner to go to this end, I don't know why we would not.
You're also assuming that we're all logical people who are going to remain in these positions on this board, and there wouldn't be other factors in play at a later point in time that might divert funding from this project.
Mr. Chairman, as one of the persons involved in the preparation of the agreement, it was never my intent. I didn't anticipate seeing Travis on a monthly basis and having a vote on whether or not a specific draw request is paid. I viewed it as, and that's why Bill pointed out there was a blank. You're going to fill in the blank at that one spot that you're approving in this agreement, a total sum of whatever it is. If it's $3 million, then that's what it is. It's paid out monthly with monthly reports, and now, it's the first time I heard it too, Casey, as the chamber's designee, contracted to be the project manager, looking at those reports and assuming what she's seeing and reporting is consistent with the overall purposes of the agreement. And things moving, I did not anticipate monthly votes from this board.
I don't think we did either.
Commitment for the total amount and monthly status reviews, if you want to call it that, to make certain that the draw requests are consistent with the purposes of the agreement, and that it appears that we're getting somewhere, I guess, on plain language.
Similarly, my interpretation has been to give you flexibility. The crystal ball could never have enough clarity for you to precisely, relative to the operation of the business, put forth a draw schedule that is accurate on what you need every month. Now, from the standpoint of peace of mind and knowing that the expenses you incur are going to be covered, there are certain base levels that will be there, but my whole intention was to give you flexibility on a monthly basis to increase or decrease those draws relative to the development of the business.
Good.
No response required.
One word.
And aside from that, we really probably do, this is another one of those gray areas, we might as well talk about it. We are funding this project, and it has to have certain levels of accountability, transparency, scrutiny, etc., and those lines are never going to be drawn in the right direction for someone. But at the end of the day, it is our objective to create diversified new aspects in this economy, and I don't think anyone on this board wants to desensitize the nature of what you're doing because of that, but we still have stewardship, and we're going to have to struggle with that. We're going to have to struggle with it as a board, and we're going to have to struggle with it as a community, and Michael's going to have to struggle with it as a newspaper. And I don't know where all the answers are, but hopefully we'll be mature enough to get there, and with Frank's help, we'll get there.
All right, give us that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, do we have any other comments, questions? I'll entertain a motion.
accept
the contract.
contract with the changes.
With the changes, except the
To fund $3 million.
fund, $3 million less
The October draw.
the October draw for a year.
And remove the salary.
Remove the salaries, and that was, say it wasn't it?
It's not, we got to remove the not.
Yeah, it was a
Oh,
knot
and
in
the
there.
knot.
We got to mark through.
Strike the knot.
Or neither. One of the items.
We'll adjust that.
Yeah.
We'll adjust that.
So Lori made the motion. I second the motion.
All right, we have that motion made and seconded.
Let me see if I can reiterate it. The motion is to approve the contract establishing funding at the equivalent of $3 million inclusive of the first month's draw, and making adjustments to the contract related to discussion today, inclusive of removal of not and removal of the salary ranges from the salary schedule. Is there anything else? I don't think so.
That's my
the motion.
understanding. It's all right, Lori? Second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have a response for bionitrogen.
Yes, did we get something back from bionitrogen?
After lunch,
Did you eat a sandwich while you were out?
Tell Bill he gets no director's report.
better not bring it back in here.
It's on your cheek.
No, we did. We discussed it with BB&T outside, and what we presented to them was a proposal, and the idea, the concept here is that it would be the funding would be held by you all, would be dispersed pro rata in accordance with the funds from the trustee. So BB&T puts their $150 with the trustee, and as the trustee disperses funds, you'll be notified, and you would put in a pro rata piece. So if it's 10 out of the 150, then you're notified.
Well,
10 divided by 150.
if you have 5 or 6 different draw schedules, 5 would be 20, maybe 20, 20, 20, or maybe different.
They were okay with that?
We,
They were okay with that?
Yes.
The grill, is that?
I think that solves the problem.
I think it does too.
Took a long time.
Phew.
I hope it does.
Well, let me go back and see what the motion needs to be.
Yeah, let's go back and look. Hold the phone.
So,
In the back of the PFM.
We got too many stuff.
Last page.
We need to meet twice a month. Hey, I got done with mine in an hour. What's wrong with you, Jim?
The PFM notes. Bill.
I know.
All right, last page.
I'm in the business.
Last page.
Okay, what relative to the discussion do you feel like needs to be modified there?
We got talking about the draw schedule on our $2 million.
Well, I think we can just change it to the draws disbursements relative to the draw
To
schedule.
the BB&T draw
BB&T
schedule.
draw schedule,
Period.
trustee.
Because the second point's where you said administered on a reimbursement basis, provided suitable procurement procedures, and after plant completion. So that'll be changed to a pro rata share based upon the draw schedule presented to the IDA, well, from BBS.
Yeah, be a
Are you making that, is that a motion, Rick?
We have to reserve it. We have to, we have to set that money aside.
Well, I think there's 2. Is that correct,
Yeah,
Bill?
that's
There's
just
the
on
first.
the first.
The first one.
Yes.
we're just crossing out the last 3 words of both of those.
And after plant completion?
Yeah, after plant completion. Per BB, should it say per draw schedule? And leave, I mean.
Yeah, because the procurement procedures are moot now because we're going to use this other draw schedule. We don't even need that.
And we haven't seen the draw
We
schedule.
probably need to say draw proposal because we haven't seen a draw schedule.
I think you can strike it when we get down to administer through the IDA on a reimbursement basis per established draw schedule for the project.
Yeah.
Do we want
Get Mr. Evers?
I think Stephen had emailed Sunday afternoon, maybe, a draft grant award agreement that was, I don't believe Bill circulated that to you guys because it was last hour and we didn't really know what direction the board was going to go. I can tell you that the agreement that Stephen prepared was based on the EDA's template grant award agreement you guys have seen over and over and over again. The IDA, we took what was the standard EDA grant award agreement, and there are a couple paragraphs with some changes, and it was the funding amount and the issue you guys just ultimately resolved, and that was how it was going to get paid out. So there is an existence, and I think, Brian, these guys are going to need something out of this board in the form of writing to evidence the decision you made today. So I don't even know what you're looking at. I guess it's the email Bill sent out with the notes to the agreement or whatever.
Actions to be taken.
There is, I don't know, maybe I should defer to these guys as far as what they need, but there is already prepared a draft grant award agreement out there in digital format that that we might, I don't know, maybe I'll just let them describe what they need from us to evidence the action the board took today. But there is a draft agreement out there. Brian, you guys want to comment on that?
Stephen can. I think as we were discussing, there's one section 7 which deals with the process of the funding, which I guess the board has discussed, and that's what you guys would approve on. So if you approve on I guess the concept of Bill or the board moving forward with the documentation that is standard for the EDA, with the funding being outlined, which as you described of basically pro rata to the disbursement of the trustee. The trustee will have the $150 million in that account, and they are only going to fund it in certain disbursement schedules for approved needs. And the $150 million was coming from large institutions that will have lawyers that will make sure that this is done in the way, and it's not my choice as to how it's done. It's done in a very specific.
So do we need a letter? What do we need here? What will they need?
The grant award agreement, most likely.
Yes.
And what I would probably suggest we do, Mr. Chairman, is if this board is comfortable doing it, Stephen has copies, I think, of the draft grant award agreement. He can circulate to you guys right now. And I can represent to you, it's the standard agreement template that the EDA has used for every grant award agreement we have. And if you guys were just want to peruse that and
Ken, I would point out,
authorize Bill and myself to finalize it consistent with the board's.
What I felt like was untenable in this agreement was that they have asked for the IDA to award them $2 million, and I do not believe that the IDA is in a position to award them $2 million. I believe the IDA is in a position to award them $1 million and transfer of the EDA grant. Okay. That is where I take issue with this document.
1 and 1.
1-in-1. But 1-in-1 may not meet their purposes. They come back in another area and acknowledge that the EDA grant, that it's subject to the EDA grant, but if this board is asking me to encumber $2 million, it may have impacts on other projects that have been approved, and I am uncertain as to whether or not the cash flow will work appropriately. I just don't know.
Are you talking about? Are you talking about $2 million including?
The IDA would be obligated to do the $2 million, and then whatever the EDA does, we get reimbursement back from them. But then we're actually having to encumber $2 million, and if we encumber $2 million right now, it could create, we'd be getting very close to creating some cash flow issues that I'm uncertain of right now. I'd have to take a close look.
This over here.
Yeah, no, I think we would be, we'd have to encumber this $2 million right now.
We have to set the $2 million aside right now.
Under the new accounting.
And I don't think we do.
Under the governmental accounting.
So how we?
So the EDA can't fund us until there's something to reimburse.
So
That was the whole issue.
I don't know if that meets these guys' requirements or not, but what I hear Bill saying is it's a $1 million agreement coupled with the $1 million from the EDA.
And the EDA meets this coming Wednesday?
21st.
Yes.
Right?
The 21st.
So we'll know.
I don't know if they're capable of advanced funding.
No. We'd have to. We could advance our $1 million and then get reimbursed for that.
I think they can structure disbursement relative to that schedule.
A different way of stating is it's a $1 million IDA commitment and another $1 million commitment subject to EDA.
That may or may not fly.
Yes.
Well, but we'll know that Wednesday.
But the EDA grant is already approved.
It's already there.
It's already there. And I understand what Bill's saying is if the IDA says we commit $2 million, then under the governmental accounting you have to restrict $2 million, even though we're not really going to millions coming from EDA. But if it can be said that there's $1 million from the IDA and $1 million from the EDA, because as we disperse this money, the first $1 million can come out of the IDA, and then we ask for reimbursement. Yeah. We get the other $1 million, and it's there.
Then we spend ours. Wouldn't that not work? We spend our $1 million, get reimbursed from EDA, and then turn around and spend our $1 million that we just got back from EDA. I mean, the draw request would never be 50% up front. I just can't imagine that happening.
Stephen, is there any problem using the words IDA and EDA?
I mean, I don't think the problem's on our end on that, honestly. I mean, I think it's just what can, I mean, this is, I don't know the answer to the question, really, is that the grant was awarded to the IDA. I guess my assumption, it ain't a dangerous thing to do, as we've been talking about this, was that the EDA money would have to come to the IDA first and then to the business, and then there wouldn't be there's not a mechanism to have that EDA grant go directly to the business anyway, because that's not how it was awarded. But
as we spend our first $1 million, or our $1 million, and request reimbursement from EDA because it's money spent, and that's reimbursed, and then when we get our $1 million back, then we spend our $1 million again.
Yeah, I mean, from our end, we don't care. I mean, that's invisible to these guys because that's an internal accounting issue.
We won't spend 50% of it.
I mean, it's on a pro rata basis. In order for that to be a problem, they'd have to spend $75 million on one draw, which isn't practically going to happen.
The grant was awarded, I believe it was classified as a generic spec building request with specificity of the project to come back before the EDA. And I don't really see any problems with the EDA apply once they understand what the importance of this project is. I don't see that being a problem.
And in the draft document we had, I did have language that addressed that it was conditional upon the EDA approving allocation of that already.
It would be on the second part, but when you stated up front that the IDA is going to award $2 million, that's the part that
I think the intent the minds here are saying the same thing. We just need to make the document consistent with that. I think what the biggest concern Bill has is an accounting deal. That
Sure,
his
we've got to
accountants
do
are
that.
telling him he has to encumber $2 million if he awards a $2 million grant.
So there's got to be a way to work this out. So why don't we put Ken, y'all get together, work this out so that it fits our accounting requirements, because we know how it's going to wind up.
It's a 1-in-1 is the way I see it. It's $1 million IDA commitment and another $1 million subject to.
We just got to get it worded so that it fits our accounting.
I need everybody to come with me to the EDA next week to make sure that they don't go south on us.
They're not going south.
So we've got to make a motion to commit them.
Yeah, we need a motion. Sorry, Rick.
This is a question for our CPA firm. But if we show the $2 million as an award and we reserve for it, can we also show the $1 million that we will be getting from the EDA to offset $1 million of that? Yeah, as a receivable. That's an accounting question, because this is under governmental accounting.
I think it's going to come back to the requirements of BB&T relative to restricting the money, because they're going to predicate their bond issue on some instrument that reserves this money.
Well, no, I'm saying.
No, he said that.
What I'm saying is in this document, if it says IDA is reserving $2 million, the question to the CPA is, do we show the $2 million as a reserve line item, liability, and then show the $1 million
as a
receivable from the EDA? So that then in turn that offsets that extra $1 million. So you're really only
do that if the reservation of the $2 million doesn't impede cash flow. It becomes a cash flow issue now, and I am uncertain because I am not sure of the various draw schedules that.
But I agree. But if the CPA says you have $2 million here, but you got $1 million of your own money and $1 million there, that offsets accounting wise in the way I'm thinking.
Well, it doesn't have a balance sheet, but
Why don't we just put a ceiling on the dollar amount of a single draw then? Does that not work?
It's not the draw, it's the escrow.
Yeah.
It's setting the money
It's the $2 million liability.
Okay, I thought you were worried about cash flow.
Well, we are, because you can't use that.
So if we wait till next Wednesday from EDA and they buy into this project I'm sure they probably will, then there's got to be some verbiage that they're allocating that once it's a reimbursable $1 million. And I go back to the point that if we spend the $1 million over 3 draws, we'll be reimbursed as it goes.
I'll promise you we'll spend the money as fast as we can.
That's not what we want to hear.
No, but we can't spend the whole. If we spend if the draw schedule calls for $300,000, $200,000, $200,000, whatever, can we apply for reimbursement with $200,000? We can spend the whole $1 million before we answer reimbursement.
I figured our lawyers should be able to work it out. We all know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Can't they work it out?
Yeah, let the lawyers and our CPA work it out. We got to see what's going to be required for us to stay compliant with our reporting
We
requirements.
still need to approve $1 million.
We just still need to approve $1 million from the IDA here today, if that's what the pleasure of the board is.
We got to reserve $2 million.
You have the motion.
No, we
did not
we'll
have a
let them
motion.
work that out. We mainly need to approve funding, and then Bill and the attorneys and CPA can work out the
Approve
details.
funding pending.
Okay. Motion to approve $1 million to be administered on a reimbursement basis per established draw schedule. Does that summarize it?
And, okay, one motion at a time?
That's one motion.
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Motion's made and seconded. Surely there's no more discussion. But if there is, what is? No?
Aye.
Any? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign? All right, that motion carries.
Now you got to do the EDA.
Now we got to do the EDA.
Motion to see approval from the EDA. you applied.
Motion to seek approval from the EDA grant money to apply to the bionitrogen project transferred from a spec building grant originally awarded by the EDA. Subject to the same established draw schedule, the IDA will approve.
Second.
All right. We have a second motion made and seconded. Any discussion? More? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
One other motion that may help is I'd like you to move to request that the clerk make disbursements of the EDA grant on a monthly basis rather than a quarterly basis. They can do that. You have to request it.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
It's not on. It's on the draw schedule, though, right? Not a month.
The disbursement from the clerk can be
Oh,
done monthly rather than quarterly, which will expedite the cash flow.
Cash flow. All right, we have a motion made and seconded that we ask the clerk to disperse monthly instead of quarterly. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Whoever did the time schedule for this thing really needs to go back to school.
Yeah, really.
I did a better job.
Oh, now back to the agenda.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Back some of the
At 10:50
maybe the rest of the agenda we can move till next meeting. What do you think?
I don't think there's only.
And I'm sorry, I know we were going to talk about the budget, but we already spent the money.
There isn't anything else. I think is there anything?
For spec building, budget amendment, continuing labs contract?
The easement?
Oh, yeah, we do have to get an approval of an easement to run power to the sheriff's command center. I just didn't feel comfortable signing it. The primary, normally on secondary services, you don't have to give easements, but they're actually having to extend the primary down a ways, down the right of way in Commerce Park to serve the building, and we need to approve the execution of that right of way easement with Peach River Electric.
Is that in here?
Yes.
This?
It is.
It should be the page
Should be.
before the balance sheet, maybe?
No, that's the related party transaction policy.
I have some. You don't have it in there?
Okay. I'll make a motion to
I got the colors and page.
make a motion to approve the right-of-way easement to be signed by.
Chairman.
It says president on here.
Right after the continuance contract.
President AKA chairman.
Yeah.
That's my motion.
All right, motion made and seconded to sign and approve the easement from Preco. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
What about the financial report? Any questions
We're
on the
not-
financial report?
We're going to move it to next
Yeah.
month.
Can you move?
There are
No, the
no.
actual, just this month's finance.
Oh.
We'll skip the budget,
Okay.
but we do need to
All
do
right.
a finance
All right, do
report.
that.
We do.
The way to do that is ask if anybody has any
Yeah.
questions.
Does anybody have any questions?
No.
What are we
Sarah,
on?
are there any aberrants or anything related to finances that needs to be brought before the board?
Not that. Keep going.
If you want to go back and look over it after the meeting, on the page I would direct you to look at would be page 1, the profit and loss, and it shows, they're pretty self-explanatory, but we had some income coming in from the EDA for reimbursement for purchasing of the Tech River building. We have some rent that came in from Keyplex and the rental houses. And then we had some payments going out for auditing, some payments going out on the buildings that we're doing, half acre, nothing unusual, all falling in line with the contracts that we have, so.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion to approve and seconded to approve the financials for whatever this last month was.
October.
October, that would be it.
Already?
Yeah, really. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
If anybody wants to come individually, I'll be more than happy to go over the financial report with you in depth. So.
Thank y'all very much. This was a very long meeting today. Thank you for your patience, and without further ado, we will adjourn.